mic. Just broke
Yeah.
after like half a year. The Yeti just stopped working.
I know. After Logitech bought Yeti, the quality seemed to go in the toilet. But the old school Yetis were at least reliable.
Mm-hmm.
I think a friend of mine has a blue Yeti that he still uses. Maybe,
Blue
no,
Yeti.
did
I
that
use that.
break recently? I think that might have broken recently, just keeping on theme.
Yeah.
We're
Nerdy
getting
Film Girl. Oh, I know Nerdy Film Girl. She is on streams.
Oh, we're live.
She's been on this stream.
Hello,
Oh, hi.
chat.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
I like Nerdy Film Girl too. I like her. She does this happy hour stream. It's usually a pretty good time, or at least I
It's
have.
good.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen Bottoms yet?
I have not. I have
I
no
have a
interest,
feeling
though, so.
not in this context.
I haven't seen it yet. No. Blue Yetis are overrated. I use a Blue Yeti to record all of my videos.
Case in point. Ooh, burn.
Oh.
Well,
No, actually,
sounds
your
not
videos
bad.
always sound pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
it's not the worst. It's all about
That
the
was-
acoustics. Some videos
Yeah.
sound better than others because I've recorded them in better spaces.
Well, that's the advantage of not using one of those like, capture everything microphones. It doesn't matter what room I'm in. I could be in my cupboard at the moment, or I could be in a church, and it wouldn't make a difference. It just sounds like ASMR, so that's all good.
That's what you think.
Good point. Yeah, this.
and then we hear your laptop fans.
Oh god, it's going mad. Honestly, we've got a mini heat wave over here, obviously, because it's September in England. And I don't know if there's a burst pipe somewhere or if the farmers have been spraying shit again, but it's this horrible combination of really warm, really humid, and shit in the air, and it's just fucking everywhere.
That's so funny. That sounds like my childhood. I lived out in the boonies, and it was all farmland, so it smelled like manure like all day, every day.
Yeah, have you ever had the problem where Windows turns on audio enhancements? I had that happen to me for like a month. I didn't even know it happened, and it's terrible. It just made my sound quality go horrible, and I bought a whole new mic. I didn't even have to because I couldn't figure out the problem. It's just Windows 11. It's terrible.
It does, because my little avatar guy periodically does Mitch McConnell and goes very static and still.
I can be real. I just thought it would be weird if I was the only one just sitting here and you guys are all like,
Oh God.
emojis, and I'm all like,
Oh,
But
yeah,
it turns out
I
that's
can
a
be a real
Windows
person.
11. It's a
Hi.
Windows 11 problem as well. So if my little avatar guy does do McConnell again, it's Windows 11 apparently that doesn't like Streamlabs. So that's the reason this happens.
That's right, Howard. That's right. That's right, Howard.
Yeah, I love Beetlejuice. He was like,
What's going on, Howard?
Is he still alive?
I'm alive, bro. I'm gonna punch him. I'm gonna find somebody to punch today.
Yeah, I just found out what's his face died, and I was like,
The guy from Smash Mouth?
no.
But he did die.
Oh, did he? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
There's an older there's an older singer who also died. I don't know what his name is. I want to say Jimmy Buffett, but I don't know if I just made
Jimmy
that name
Buffett.
up. Holy shit, that was
Yeah,
just
Jimmy
pot
Buffett,
luck.
yeah.
It's like that sounds vaguely right. I'm just gonna throw that out there. It could have been anyone, but it turns out it was actually a real person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. Matt Cat. He
Oh,
worked
thank
right
you.
on Open Bar.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say.
Oh, wait. See, yes. Smash Mouth guy.
Yeah. I loved Smash Mouth back in the day when they first started.
When I was in middle school.
Yeah,
Smash
when I
Mouth
was
rocked.
in middle. Yeah.
We're on your channel today, Little Platoon, so you get to play host.
Oh,
Yay.
good. Yeah, yay. Well done. That was such a soft opening, though, that it took me about a minute to realize that we'd actually opened. So that was well done. Yeah, well, hello, everyone. It's a slightly slow news week, I suppose, because the strikes are still happening. But that does mean that loads of stuff's been moved and delayed as per usual. So I can't remember exactly which list. I hope someone's got the list up, because otherwise I'm going to have to go and Google it. But there's a load of really exciting Marvel stuff we will now have to wait several more months to see. So all those people who've been on the edge of their seats for many months waiting for Agatha and what is it called now? The Darkhold Diaries?
Yeah.
Or
ridiculous.
Echo,
Diary of Darkness.
Echo. Then, yeah, you're going to have to wait a bit longer, apparently, which is tragic and traumatic. And besides that, I guess more strike stuff and then loads of Starfield controversy because that's kicked off in a strange and fun and exciting way. So
which I didn't know anything about it until last night when I was on Brown's channel, and then I went and looked up. I was like, oh, this is a thing, man. I was like, and some people get very upset about it. I was like, this is narts.
It did. I don't know exactly how widespread it is because the only one I've seen so far is Az's take, but I don't know how many other people have done some similar things or how widespread the boycott.
Well, the game isn't even out.
Is.
Yeah, the game's not even out till Wednesday, so not many people have actually played it because the early access you got to pay money for it. It's like $90 instead of the traditional like 70. I have Game Pass, so I got it for $30 because it's free on Game Pass. It's kind of wild how they just put Starfield out for free on Game Pass. It's kind of crazy.
I guess as a strategy, though, it's a good way of getting more people to subscribe to Game Pass and hopefully keep them there for other things that may or may not appear on Game Pass. I think I have Game Pass. I have no idea what it is or what's on it. It came free with my PC, but my PC only worked for about a week. So until I get that back, Game Pass is a mystery to me. But should we kick off with the stuff that's been delayed? I suppose that might be a good idea. Sure. What have we got? What is everyone looking forward to that we're now going to have to wait a long time to see? Who was actually really genuinely looking forward to Agatha, for example?
I for one was just looking forward to the delays.
Yeah.
Well, Dune is probably the biggest one, but
that's the only one I'm really disappointed about because for most of this year, I've had people occasionally pop up in comments saying, do you just hate everything? Is there even anything you're looking forward to this year? And I'll say, well, yeah, there is. Dune too. And now it's next year. So now I just have to reply, yes, I do hate everything, at least for the rest of 2023.
Craven the Hunter.
I get that
Craven the Hunter was delayed. Sony.
Oh, shit. Craven and Echo are the two that I always forget are even happening.
Yeah. I'm a big Aaron Taylor Johnson fan. I'll watch it for him. I think he's underrated, but I don't care about that it was delayed. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And nobody's
bigger
looking
ones.
forward. No. Nobody's looking. I mean, the only people who are looking forward to Agatha are, the gays because they love it for some odd reason, and then everybody else is just I don't know anybody that A knows about this show and B cares. And a lot of them are Marvel fans, and they were just like, "Oh, they're doing an Agatha show," and I'm like, "Yeah," and everything. So, and it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. So who cares? Nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
Echo was also pushed back.
Yeah.
Oh, damn!
Wow. Jeez.
That they should just cancel that show altogether.
Also, I don't know if you guys are aware of that sci-fi Mickey with Robert Pattinson and Bong Joon-ho. He did Parasite.
Oh, yeah.
That was delayed till again. Next March is pretty big. Did you see the schedule for March?
No.
It's like Dune, Kung Fu Panda 4, Mickey, Disney's what's the Disney one that was delayed? Wish, I think.
Did that Wish get delayed?
Yeah. I forget it was, which is funny because
Snow White didn't that get delayed also?
Yeah, Snow White is the same month. It's like this. It's like Dune and Snow White are like within a week of each other.
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda is gonna make a lot of money probably.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I love those movies.
Challengers was delayed. Luca Guadagnino's movie with Zendaya. The tennis movie.
Oh yeah.
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 I remember that trailer.
Yes.
It's funny that Wish was delayed because Wish is like a celebration of Disney's 100th anniversary, which is this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's coming out on the 101st anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of awkward. They had to delay that.
It's a really fitting summation of Disney's year, really, isn't it? The 100th, the centenary celebration even has to be delayed for a year. That's just the kind of year we've had.
It's sad. It's like, why they didn't have to do that, didn't they? Is that movie even like gonna be? I thought that was like a gimmick movie because of the anniversary.
This is the first I've heard of it, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's delayed till July. That's so far away.
Oh boy, never mind. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's
what
crazy.
else have we got that actually is coming out this year still? So I think the Marvels is still on track to make a splash.
High flop.
Kind. Yeah, that will be fun. What else?
Aquaman. As of
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
that's not been moved from its stupid Christmas Day release time.
The
Gonna ruin my Christmas.
Godzilla trailer came out yesterday. That's coming out in December.
Yeah, that looks
I
good.
am really excited for that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the first time I saw anything for it. And I was like, this looks really, really good. Although I didn't see subtitles, so I was like, I don't know what they're saying, but it still looks freaking good.
It's
You
It's like
watched the
dramatic,
trailer in
whatever
the
it is.
original Japanese.
I was like, well, I hope they do put subtitles. Nothing annoys me more. I'm like, I don't know what anybody like. They did that in what was that movie where they're singing and dancing? West Side Story, and they had Spanish, but they didn't put subtitles on. I was like, I don't know frickin' Spanish, and they didn't give me a heads up. So I'm like, I hope they don't do that in this one.
Matt, I hate to break it to you, but Godzilla's not actually saying anything, so they don't have to subtitle.
That was my first experience watching Avatar: The Way of Water, because I watched it in a country where they didn't do subtitles, and so whenever the Na'vi were speaking in their foreign language, it's like I don't have a clue what you're saying. I'm sure it's just a cliche though, and lo and behold, on the second watch, it turned out that it was, so I didn't miss anything. But
It's just kids bullying each other for 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours.
dude,
But pop culture is kind of dead. There are a lot of good films coming out, though. I mean, I'm excited for The Killer, David Fincher's new movie with Michael Fassbender.
Oh yeah, I just saw the trailer for that.
Yeah, Napoleon comes out in November.
Oh yeah, that looks good too.
There's another one called. There's a lot of Oscar bait stuff. I mean, some of these look really good. I think Napoleon looks great. Maestro with Bradley Cooper, Ferrari, Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese.
Oh yeah, I'm
an
looking
Apple
forward
movie.
to that.
Yeah, both of those are on
Rebel
Apple
Moon.
TV. Flower Moon and Napoleon are Apple productions,
And New Moon, New Moon.
and The Killer.
Ferrari's a Michael Mann.
And then that's a
film,
Michael
right?
Mann movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but The Killer is a Netflix movie.
Yeah,
It's weird, man. All these streaming services are taking, it's funny because they're taking risks. Like, I feel like movies like The Killer are going to be more cultural, like impact our sort of our culture more so than like the fucking Marvels. But you know what I mean? Like Fight Club is sort of like an indie David Fincher movie, but people have that poster on their wall still. Nobody has like Ant-Man posters on their wall. I just think these movies are more interesting to me, and I'm glad the streaming services are taking some risks on them. But
yeah,
Well,
and
I
it's
think
one of the happier consequences of the strike is that you probably get more foreign films in particular as Netflix. I think Netflix, didn't they say something like 25% of their content in the near future will end up coming from East Asia in particular, which is probably for the best, just because it's more storytelling variety. As you know, even if you don't buy into the idea that all Western entertainment is completely riddled with lefty communists, which is it's a contestable proposition. At least the Far East doesn't tend to have that, and you get more interesting varieties of story. You wouldn't have something like Squid Game unless you'd actually branched out. And if there's something that comes from the strikes, it's the fact that we're going to get less generic, boring Hollywood shit, and we're going to give the Japanese a chance to develop their own cliches instead.
And A24 can still make movies, and I kind of like their stuff sometimes.
No.
Yeah.
Where have I heard A24 before? Sinning, did they do that?
Yeah, I mentioned
that you
them
like
a number of times. Yeah,
Uncut Gems.
yeah, they did Pearl, which is the
Pearl,
one
Uncut
we
Gems.
talked about a lot.
A lot of I can't remember now actually. That Hayao Miyazaki movie is set to release this year. His last film, Hayao Miyazaki. The Boy and the Heron.
Yeah.
Is that the one that he was complaining that they weren't doing enough publicity for?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what I actually have read about that film and know very little about it.
Yeah, they didn't want to market it at all. It was A24 is really good.
Yeah,
They do Ari Aster films. I think Beau's
I don't
Afraid,
like those,
and
though.
Robert Eggers. I think they've done some of his films.
Yeah, they did like that Ex Machina movie.
Ex
yeah,
Machina.
they take a lot of risks, and they can do it with a really low budget, so it affords them, like a wide margin of error.
Yeah.
But they did Talk to Me this year already.
Yeah,
which
it's a $4 million budget, dude. That made so much money.
Yeah, it's like an all Australian cast horror film, and it's really fucking good.
That's what I
I
hear.
still need to watch it.
Yeah, that 10x'd its budget. I think. Well, Jordan Peele's Get Out was also like $3.5 million. That made like $200 million. The $5 million thing is like so good for horror. Like you can just almost do anything with it.
Yeah,
You don't need to spend a lot of money.
No, not at all.
I think
I'm gonna spend
Megan-
the next 2 months watching horror movies too.
Yeah, I think Megan was like 16 million. It's like a
Yeah,
big
it
budget.
was nothing for,
Yeah.
and it made like $100 million.
Yeah,
Yeah, Megan was good. I love Megan.
Mhm. I like that.
I've still
Uh,
not seen Megan,
cool.
but it's interesting just on the budget point because I was looking up, and obviously we were talking about the streaming services taking more risks in different ways.
Yeah.
Because I was looking up some of the budgets for Apple TV stuff because Apple TV is a real mixed bag. There's some really good stuff. There's some really awful stuff. There's not a huge amount of mid stuff. But I was just looking at, because I think Foundation is probably their glitziest of productions. It's also
Right.
the worst by some considerable distance. But if you look at that, you think, okay, this has got to be a budget that's at least on the size of, say, The Mandalorian, because it looks so much better than that. Apparently, that's $45 million for the entire season,
wow.
as opposed to something like $150 million for Mando season 3.
You can't.
But just from the way it
yeah.
looks so good. It's a shame the story's garbage, but it looks lovely. And then it also did Tetris as well. Tetris was actually really good.
Yeah,
It's one of the only
Tetris
films
was
this year I
good.
could say
Yeah.
Tetris was
100%
great.
enjoy that one.
Apple. I was Apple, right? Yeah.
And
that was
Silo as well, which has been sort of okay, not great, but
Oh.
not terrible.
Yeah, I bailed on Silo. I was like, this is too complicated. I was like, I can't do this right now.
It picks up again by the end. So the
Oh.
beginning is really intriguing, and then it's like, we'll have another mystery bugs, and then another one, also another
Yeah.
one, and another one. Have you done? No. You can have one more. You can at least room for 2
Yeah, I think I
more mystery
bailed
bugs.
it. Sorry.
No, but then it picks itself up again. It does sort of come to something like a conclusion. But
Yeah,
it's one of those ones that inspired me to get the book, so I started those. And it's a bit different. Very, very differently paced. I think
Right
the book's
on.
pacing is better, but nevertheless, not a bad production.
Yeah.
Right on. Maybe I'll pick it back up. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm gonna
Separate-
read this super chat because it's actually relevant. And
Yeah.
hey, we'll change up the
You
format.
say it like all of our super chats aren't actually relevant. All
No,
of
I-
our super chats are relevant.
We always save them for the end, and I was like, well, why don't we
Yeah.
just, since it's relevant right now, actually pull it up?
I think we should just do that going forward anyway. It makes more
Yeah,
sense.
I'm cool with it. Yeah. Jackson loves Nintendo for $4.99. I actually watched the Miyazaki film in Japan, and it's really
Oh, wow.
fantastic. Great message on life. Can't wait for it to eventually release globally.
That's awesome. Man, that's
What
that's cool.
movie is it that he's made that
Called-
his last one?
It's called The Boy and the Heron, and it does give me early Miyazaki vibes. It has some sort of, because sometimes he'll do sort of dark movies like Princess Mononoke and
I love
some
Princess
sort of
Mononoke.
even though everything is very optimistic and a lot of the times his movies have very family wholesome messaging, but sometimes he gets a little creepy. Have you ever seen Spirited Away?
Yes.
So with remember like the pigs, like where they're eating so much that they turn into pigs. It's kind of disgusting, actually.
Yeah. No, he's good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
I'll
It's part of the appeal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not sanitized in the same way as any given Western. Even something like Saw is in a weird way sanitized because it's just one note. There's no contrast in it. It's just out there to be as shocking as possible in the most shallow and superficial way possible. Whereas you get that with Miyazaki, you get that with quite a lot of like older school animation as
Yeah.
well, which is that they have much more liberty to be truly varied in what they're conveying and in the way they convey it. You're supposed to be creeped out by some of
Yeah.
it. You're not just supposed to sit there thinking, "Oh God, that's only creepy." It's creepy
Like,
by contrast.
Walt Disney did a lot of that. I mean, the Pinocchio was when I was a kid. That was a terrifying movie. The donkey
Yeah.
transformation. That's a good one.
Right on.
Yeah, even stuff like Fantasia as well, which is
Fantasia.
like it's brilliantly sort of done visually, and then the musical accompaniment, but it's quite dark in its own ways and its own places.
Mhm.
And then of course there's the whole anti-Semitism thing. So you get a whole mixed bag with Walt Disney.
Right on.
God, Dumbo. The racism in that one.
Right
Oh
on.
boy.
This
I
super
love
chat
that
is
movie.
for you, Platoon.
Oh yeah, from Nebraska because for $2, Little Platoon, Eppenberg reference. Yes, I think George Orwell also used it, but it comes from Eppenberg. And it's the basic idea underpinning a Little Platoon is like a basic, ordinary, organically grown civil society organization, as distinct from a state or a governmental charity organization. It's the thing that people naturally form when they are left alone to form their own little communities. So technically, all of this is a Little Platoon. I am co-opting you all into me. So enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, Nerdy Girl. I have not seen that yet. I'm a little behind on some of that stuff.
Anything else we're looking forward to then coming out that's not being delayed this year? And I say
Saw
looking forward
10.
to not in the sense that Saw 10, is that still going?
Yeah.
It is. Those movies are annoying, but
I can't wait to not like that movie.
I don't even know the last Saw film I've seen.
yeah, me neither. It's
I
been
watched
so-
them all earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like on iTunes, they had a sale for the entire,
Oh.
all 9 of them for like $20. So we bought them.
That's
and
a
just
good
watched
deal.
them all.
Oh, I thought you might have lost another bet.
There's a movie coming out with Nicolas Cage called Dream Scenario. You guys familiar with that one?
No.
It's
I am not.
it's about a guy who is just a regular dude, Nicolas Cage, and everyone starts seeing him in their dreams. And it's some sort of like weird.
like real
I'm
life.
getting like Eternal Sunshine kind of Charlie Kaufman vibes a little bit from it, but it might be it might be interesting. But he looks crazy in it. He looks like a weird college professor. Just looks different.
He does look different.
Yeah.
I saw the thumbnail for the trailer, or at least I think it's
Mhm.
the trailer. I did not see this movie, so I don't know what it's about.
Yeah.
This dude gets it.
Yes. I'm trying to think of a movie that's still coming out that I'm interested in. Is The Creator coming out still, or did they
Yes.
push that back? I'm excited. I'm looking forward to see that.
Same. We'll
I
see.
think
It
that
could
one
be
looks
good.
pretty good. I'm trying to think.
I don't know a
have-
huge amount about the creator beyond that it's by what's his name?
Gareth
Rogue One guy.
Evans.
Gareth Edwards, that's the one.
I'm looking forward to that
and
one.
the very basic premise. I don't know a huge amount. Is there any like story information that's out already, or is it just
No,
like,
it's
an
about-
interesting premise?
Artificial intelligence taking over. That's the main theme of the movie. But
Right,
it
and
kind
it's
of yeah.
it's the what is it? The Bear and the Cub story. It's,
Oh,
you know, the protector or whatever.
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
It's giving me District 9 vibes a little bit. Not the
Yeah.
handy-cam
Oh, yeah,
documentary
yeah.
stuff, but the kind of the underdog sci-fi, original sci-fi movie, which Hollywood doesn't fund anymore. They don't fund original science fiction, so it's good to see the creator and even Rebel Moon is, I guess you could call it original sci-fi.
Yeah.
But-
Okay.
In as much as anything that was rejected for a Star Wars story can be original.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
When
I
is
hope
that out in December?
Oh, I don't know, dude. I think is it Netflix?
God.
Yes.
Oh, are you talking about the
Yeah.
creator?
Rebel Moon.
Oh, Rebel Moon. Yeah, that's Netflix. Yeah, that's in December.
Man. Look,
And
the
it's in-
creator could. I'm not a Gareth Edwards fan. I don't like Rogue One very much, and I do not like his Godzilla movie at all.
He does very
And-
pretty visuals. He's good at the
Yeah.
visual stuff. It's not quite so good on crafting characters you care about or stories you really
No.
invest in. Like Rogue One, I think it stands incredibly well, obviously next to everything that comes after it. But it also benefits from that comparison. And I think, you know, if that had been the first Disney Star Wars thing to release and no sequel trilogy stuff had come around it to sort of poison
Right.
the well, people would probably look at that and say, okay. Like, there's not too much objectionable about it. There's just not a huge amount to really cheer for or invest in or feel for. But really beautiful visuals. Same with the Godzilla film. The Halo jump scene is
Fantastic.
like stunningly shot. But I can't tell you a single thing about Aaron Taylor Johnson's character at all.
No, terribly boring, generic military guy storyline, and then it has 11 minutes of Godzilla in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, that's the.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Oh, I only watch the films for the monster fights. I don't do it for the
Pretty much.
dialogue. So yeah, but all the film is the fucking dialogue and the stupid human characters.
Yeah.
At least it's better. It's not as bad as all of the ones that came after it, though. There is that to
Yeah.
be said for it.
Yeah, no, his visual cinematography or whoever he's working with the Rogue One in particular with the beach like battle at the end was beautiful. I love that. It was a great Star Wars visual moment for me. I thought it was great. But-
Yeah, and he understands that sort of power of the iconography using the Death Star in sort of quite muted, but nevertheless very impactful ways. As muted as destroying a planet can be, but
Yeah.
muted compared to it's not like music blaring, everyone basically pointing at you and saying, "Hey, remember the Death Star? It's the Death Star." So, no, that's quite artistically used. I didn't mind that too much. Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of with the creator, I hope that it's not just that, and it's not just
Right.
it's vaguely pretty, but otherwise it's this story that we've seen 1,000 times before. Everyone is like worried about AI because AI is going to take over the world. Okay, that's a very familiar premise, but that means that you now have to do something very distinctive with that. and I don't know if he has the chops to do it, but I guess we'll see.
Did
Yeah.
anyone see The Last Voyage of the Demeter?
No, I bought it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Not yet.
I did see it, and it was so goddamn boring and bland.
yeah.
It was the most bland kind of movie that you can make. It wasn't scary. It wasn't thrilling. It was nothing. And
It was nothing.
it was nothing. It really was like
It was.
it's
a
one of
thing.
those movies where you're like, yeah, it was competently made in like every capacity, and nothing stood out at all. Like it felt like, I don't know, 60-70% of the way through, I was like, man, I could be home doing something
Interesting.
way better than watching this. Like I prefer it being bad, so that I can complain about it.
Yeah, there's nothing quite as boring as just an adequate film. I mean, either be really
Yeah,
good or
it's
be
the
totally
worst.
shit that I'm enjoying the hell out of mocking you.
Yeah, I love watching movies like Rampage. It's just like this is so bad that it's like fun to make fun of.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, someone who liked it at least. Someone did. I don't know. It wasn't a bad
it's
movie.
getting
That's
mixed
the problem.
reviews. It's
Yeah.
getting mixed from people that I follow. Like people said that what you said, and people said that it's actually surprisingly good. And I don't know.
No, lead actor is good. I like him.
Yeah.
And it had one cool scene that is absolutely not worth the price of admission. I mean, if you're there and it happens, fine. That's cool. All right. Don't go out of your way.
Speaking of lead actors, John David Washington. What do you guys think of him? He's the from the creator and Tenet. You guys like him?
Wait, the
I
lead?
do.
The black guy.
I
So he's isn't he the son of Denzel?
yes, I do like him, but I mean,
I thought he was
like
good
him.
in Tenet. I
He
like
was
him.
great in Tenet. I thought.
when you could hear him,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nolan's famous for that on-set dialogue and just not changing it for
Oh,
some
I'm
reason.
so mad about that. Ugh. So
But the creator, I just looked it up. He's citing Apocalypse Now, Blade Runner, Akira, and Baraka, which is a documentary, as his influences, and all of those are really cool visually. So if that's what he's inspired by, like I'm excited for it. You know what I mean? We'll see.
I mean, I've quoted a lot of things that influence me. That doesn't mean that I'm anything
That's
like
true.
any of those. You know,
That's
John
true.
Holmes, I was inspired by him. Sadly, my wife will attest that I did not live up to it.
Oh no.
hold on.
Has anyone seen is Equalizer 3? I believe that's out now. I'd only heard of the Equalizer basically 2 weeks ago when the trailer for Equalizer 3 came out, so I know nothing about this. But has anyone seen it? Is it worth seeing? I know I've heard
it's
some good people saying
like
it.
it's one of those things where I had every opportunity over the past few days to go, and I'm just like, nah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. My kids are starting school, so I have to wait until they're in school so I can go during the day. So I don't have to spend $1 million on movies. But
Yeah, I saw the best Equalizer movie. It was called Man on Fire.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I do love Man on Fire. Yeah.
Christopher Walken's fantastic in that movie. Creasy's art is death, and he's about to paint his masterpiece.
Yes.
It's one of my best favorite lines ever in a movie.
That's
So
good
just-
because I haven't seen Equalizer 1 and 2.
I liked Equalizer 1. 2's okay.
Did not see it. Just seemed
That
really
was my problem
generic
with
to me.
John Wick, because John Wick 4 came out, and I thought, well, do I need to see 1, 2, and 3 first? And I think someone, it might even have been you, Cynic, told me that I didn't necessarily need to go and watch all of them, but that I should. So I watched 1 and half of 2 in the same sitting. 1, I thought, okay, fine, taken, but with dog. And then 2, I think I switched off, and then I just watched 4, and then it made no sense. But I'm not sure it made a huge amount of sense even in context, so maybe I didn't need to watch 3.
I don't think with Equalizer you need to watch the first two. They're just because I don't. Besides Denzel's character, there's nothing in there from the first movie, and it was fine. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't the best movie on the planet, but I haven't seen this one yet, so I don't know if you need to watch any other two movies to get this one.
It just
But,
helps you care more about the relationship between Wick and the Continental guy. Forget his name at the moment. But you know what I mean?
Always a
They
sign of a really good character.
Yeah.
That guy.
I don't know. I don't remember his name.
The pimp from Deadwood. Yeah, I can never remember
Yeah.
his name.
Backer that guy.
The Queen Latifah.
That guy.
Yeah, she's great. She's great.
Winston. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, Winston. That's a cool name too. See, Iceman had it.
Besides those things, I've been taking a look at the only other things that are still scheduled for release movies-wise for the rest of this year. There's the Marvels, obviously, Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Wonka, and Aquaman. That's it for major
Is
releases.
Trolls still coming out, or did that get delayed? Me and my kids are looking forward to Trolls 3.
Oh, man.
Those movies are a good
Trolls
time.
3?
Yeah, Trolls 3. Yeah, looking so good forward to it.
Wait a minute. Hang on.
yeah, hold on.
I'm looking this up.
Yeah, I'm looking it for. It's November 17th.
You really watch these movies?
Yeah, I have children.
awesome.
They love and they're a good time. They're singing and dancing. It's
Damn,
animation.
these movies made a lot of money.
Yeah, they're fun.
I just looked this up. Wow.
Yeah.
They made a huge amount of money off of dads saying, "Oh yeah, no, I only watched it because I have children," even if they've actually gone and watched it all on their own.
And alleged dads that show up with no children.
Elemental made a lot of money.
Yeah, I saw that movie too.
Yeah.
Took both my kids. Yeah.
I thought Elemental was a bomb, wasn't it?
It's come up slowly. It's not a complete bomb.
Yeah,
It's
it ended
not a
up,
complete bomb, but it's
like
it did
500
okay.
million.
Yeah, it did okay. So
So it'll still lose money.
yes, but it wasn't actually that bad of a movie. I mean, it was all right. At least I thought so.
It just passed Cars and Toy Story at the box office.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
now
What are the
just for
budgets,
inflation.
though? That's always
Yeah.
what the issue is.
Yeah. But Toy Story was like, the other ones are way higher. I think the one of them is in the top 20, right? Ever. Toy Story 4, maybe? Box office?
Yeah, that's a really good example of the box office returns not guaranteeing quality film, I think. Isn't 4
Right.
of the Toy Story films, it's not great. I'm trying to think if I've even seen 4 now. Now I start
haven't.
shitting on it.
Jurassic World Dominion was terrible, and that made $1
Oh
billion.
my god,
That's
yes,
that made
that
$1 billion.
fucking film.
It's
Yeah.
because Matt Cat has taken his kids there to just watch the dinosaurs run around.
Hey, look, dinosaurs.
My
Yeah.
kids
Are
like
there going to be
dinosaurs,
trolls
okay?
with the dinosaurs?
Anything animated, they're all about.
Oh, that's such one of the most worst experiences of my life. Jurassic World Dominion came out while I was working sort of the boring old job, while I had coronavirus. And so I'd COVID was slaving away writing about pensions during the day, at night watching that god-awful piece of shit, and then spending hours and hours meticulously breaking it apart with COVID as well. That was closer to killing me than the actual COVID was.
They always come in threes.
Did you break down like I didn't watch that video, but like I'm assuming you talked about how they just essentially butchered the spirit of the original movies now, like to the point where it's just a globe-trotting action adventure movie, like a Tom Cruise movie. Like
God,
what
yeah.
happened to the claustrophobic horror, monster movie?
I think
what
there's
I mean?
actually a bit in the intro is basically just, this is why Jurassic Park is so good and you should be watching that instead. And that's
Yeah.
one of the arguments is that you compare the visual look of it and just the film talent, the filmmaking talent that goes behind that. The fact that, there's about probably 3 entire CGI shots in Jurassic Park, and they're very rare, and the panoramics are just there to give you that momentary wow factor, which is supposed to contrast with everything else being really claustrophobic, really dark, really close in the jungle, and most of the stuff being animatronic. And the contrast is what works. And then Jurassic World, the first one, comes out, which I fucking hated as well. And then it's just nothing but green and blue screen shite panorama that I don't care. I don't care if all these people are dying. Also, why are you being so mean to the babysitter? She didn't deserve that. But the rest of it was just, and then it just gets worse from there, because Fallen Kingdom was probably worse. Clone Girl, who releases dinosaurs onto the world. And then Dominion just wrapped it all up by being worse than all of the previous 2 combined.
With the laser pointer.
Laser guided velociraptors.
Yeah.
They stole that from, there's an old Tekken animated film where laser guided dinosaurs are a villain, I think, in that.
That's great.
I don't know if Trevorrow wrote the script to that, but he was supposed to do a Star Wars movie, and
He was supposed to do the original Darker episode 9, wasn't he? Because that script leaks. And I've never read the full thing. I've always meant to, but never got around to it. I've just seen bits and pieces of it. And bits and pieces of it sound okay. Like, it's more interesting. Well, it's hard not to be more interesting than The Rise of Skywalker. However, some of it sounded genuinely interesting. I think he would have had Rey go to the dark side and Finn become a Jedi and have to fight her. And I was like, that's a good idea. Make it darker and more serious. And then JJ got involved, and the rest is history.
Yes, he sucks.
Damn, Kyle knocked it out of the park with that.
I like
That
the
is true.
cinematography in Fallen Kingdom, though. I mean, I like Bayona, J.A. Bayona. I think he's a good director. He didn't write the script. It's not. I don't blame him for this horrible storytelling in that movie, but he did a good job. I thought. I liked his movie. A Monster Calls is really good. The Impossible, that tsunami movie with Ewan McGregor, is really good.
There's the one
He's a good
Brachiosaurus
director.
there in Fallen
Yeah.
Kingdom when it's on the edge of it. None of it makes any sense because they've all been engulfed in pyroclastic flow, which is like 3,000 degrees. They're all dead. But the Brachios, when it rears up out of the smoke and then fades into the smoke, and that's quite effective. I didn't mind that. Would have been nicer if it had not been so monumentally dumb, but it looked really good.
Well, I think what you didn't understand was that it was actually related to Galadriel. That's why the pyroclastic flow had no real effect.
Who would have thought knowing about pyroclastic flow would be so useful in film criticism, especially 2020 onwards?
It's only in shit films. That's all it's useful for.
Of the rest of the stuff on the list, Hunger Games. I see my sister watched Hunger Games, and so I think she really liked them. I don't know. Is that a franchise that still has a huge amount of life left in it? Is anyone champing at the bit for another one?
My mom is super excited.
Yeah, I know people that are excited for it. I read the book that this movie is based off, and it sucked. So I don't understand how this movie is. It's just a musical at this point because there's so much singing, and I'm all like, you got to be kidding me. If they put all this singing in this movie, it's going to be ridiculous. And it's got that Zegler girl, so, she's insufferable. So I don't know how it's going to do.
That's going to be really interesting, I think, to watch, because this is the first of her films that's come out after all of the old articles and interviews came up. So
it will be.
I don't know if it is going to make a huge dent at all. I don't think it will do a huge dent in Snow White. I don't think that would have performed well in any sense. But I think Hunger Games might be a useful indicator as to whether or not the kind of thing she's saying pisses off the kind of audience that her two upcoming films are really targeted at. And I don't think it does. It's the kind of thing that pisses off people who will never go and see the film to begin with. So it will be interesting to see. Apparently, she's playing a much more vivacious and out there and confident character than Jennifer Lawrence in the original films, I think I read somewhere. Because obviously, girl boss, you have to do that.
I didn't get that from the book, but I mean, maybe they changed it for this movie and everything. I think her character in the book is kind of annoying, but and manipulative. But it's mostly about that blonde kid that plays President Snow, or soon to be. He's like the main character. So, yeah.
So you're saying that Ziegler was well cast?
Yes.
Princess Fiona membership too. Just pulled up, by the way. She thought we missed her, so I wanted to pull up her.
Oh, sorry, Fiona. Remember, for 3 months, why aren't we talking about Coppola's Megalopolis?
It has been so long since
I'm not talking about it because I don't know what the hell it is. So
yeah,
I've heard of it, and that's all I've got.
Yeah, it's been so long.
Shamefully, I think it's on the top of the list of things that people keep telling me that I really should have seen but haven't, and it will probably be there for a while, so I can't help you on that one.
Yeah.
But on Hunger Games though, I guess going back to the original question, is this something that anyone is very excited? Is the original audience for Hunger Games going to flock back to see this prequel?
I think so. I mean, the first trilogy did pretty good, and I enjoyed those books. But in the movies overall, the last two were kind of nonsense. But I think it'll do good because it has Hunger Games on it. So I think people will go see it.
That's what they think too.
Yeah, I think they'll go and check it out. I mean, I'm not going to go to the theater see it because I know what happens and I don't like it, already. So I'm not interested in that.
But if your children take you to see it, of course you'll go.
I am not going to take them to see that. I'm pretty sure they don't care about that. They have not seen the Hunger Games, and we haven't read those books yet, so they're not interested. But yeah.
Yeah, is that as a brand, has that kind of exhausted itself? Because you had Hunger Games, and then you have, the same essential audience goes flocking to Twilight and others. Has it been long enough since the books came out and since the vast majority of the movies came out is there really any kind of audience for that now?
I think so. I think it's just because like this is a prequel, and people are like, oh, I want to know more about this stuff, and I want to see little kids die and everything. So I don't know.
Well, I watched Battle Royale for that.
Oh yeah, that movie is fantastic. But yeah, I think there is. I really do. I don't know if this movie will be. I think this movie will be a success. I just think it's because it's got the Hunger Games name on it. I do honestly think that people will go see it because of that, even if they haven't read the books. So
I guess it'll benefit as well from its new lack of competition, right? So it's not actually going to have the kind of stiff competition that it would have done had the rest of the stuff not been delayed. I don't know, because with this one, I just wonder whether, in fact, it's been too long since the books, because they were immensely faddish for a while, and everyone went to see them because everyone went to see them, and everyone read them because everyone read them, and so that's the thing you did. Whereas now, because it has been so long, and I don't really, I mean, maybe I'm just mixing in the wrong circles. I don't hear a huge amount of chat about Hunger Games nostalgia anywhere. I wonder whether a prequel actually is going to pull in the kind of numbers that the originals did.
Yeah, I think
What was
there's
the budget on this one?
I will have to Google that.
I am.
a lot.
That's
I'm
going to
sure.
play a huge factor.
Budget.
It's I think 180 million from what I'm reading right here.
Jesus.
Hold on.
Oh.
I'm trying to. Oh, I just lost it. It looks like 180 million.
It's
That
not
was a big
but it's
Twinkie.
big-ish, but it's not the biggest, I suppose. I was looking for predictions as well. The only one I found so far, someone way back in April predicted it would gross about 700 million at the box office, which would, I think, be below the older ones. I can't remember exactly what they got, but I think it's less than that, or more than that even. And yeah, I think someone in chat said like the fans have grown up as well, but well, have they? That's the question. I will bring. I can.
They have aged.
Chat's
I'm
moved
not sure
up.
if they
Where's it
grew up.
gone? Yeah, that's the question, right? Like, have they actually grown up, or is this going to be like people who are Harry Potter fans when they're 10, and they are exactly the same people when they're 25, and still defining themselves by which house they've been put in online? I could see that being a thing.
Well, I think Hunger Games might be an interesting examination of what's going on with Marvel and other properties where they were, in many ways, you had normie bandwagon fans that jumped on because it was a social event, right? It was the thing to do. It was the hotness that everybody was involved in. And then, you get the or the Captain Marvel, people just go see it because it has the Marvel branding on it, and oh, by the way, it was slotted between two movies. But as you saw phase 4 and phase 5, it begins to die off. I mean, you would have thought after like the first couple of movies it would have just been dead if all they're doing is judging quality. Instead, what happens is that the energy and the bandwagon, kind of the wheels fall off of it, and people just slowly move on to something else. I'm wondering if Hunger Games reflects that same kind of general narrative.
I can see that. Also, just as a point of information, I'm a Ravenclaw, thank you very much, and you can go back to my playthrough of Hogwarts Legacy, which confirms the fact. But yeah, no, I think that's probably that's sort of where I'm coming from with this. I mean, it used to be almost a mimetic thing. Young adult post-apocalyptica was huge for a while. Hunger Games was, I don't know if Hunger Games was the first, though Jennifer Lawrence was in it, so it probably was. But then from that you got the Maze Runner. You had the Divergent series that was a thing for a while, and there were a couple of others as well, which all go in for very much young adult post-apocalypse dystopia stuff, and it was massive, and every young adult thing started gearing itself in that direction. I don't know that there's a huge amount of interest in that now. I don't know if the social conditions that produced that interest in the first place have changed. I don't think they have too much, but maybe that's a bit of a slightly tired out genre. It's hard to go back and do that again without people just saying, well, you're just repeating that early 2010s kind of timeline of
yeah, it's
film.
like trying to return to zombies.
Yeah, which is really hard to do unless you can do it something brand new, an actually new take on it. I think if anything, The Last of Us didn't quite manage it when The Last of Us came out. It wasn't so dissimilar to The Walking Dead that it was interesting enough. It was a little bit too much of the traditional zombie stuff, I suppose.
Well, I think it's interesting because the Hunger Games kind of was piggybacking off of the Battle Royale, like kind of exploded into the pop culture mainstream, the battle royale kind of genre. And then
I mean,
lately,
well, so I was
yeah.
certainly up and operating quite well in that era. Battle Royale, for all of its
Yeah.
cultural significance within geekdom, did not have
No.
it was a fart in a hurricane across
Right.
most of pop culture.
Yeah, it's not even the most like popular Japanese movie in the last 20 years, but it's or 2000 it came out. But lately the battle royale genre has shifted to like a more like modern take. So you have Squid Game, more like game oriented stuff, like Alice in Borderland, Squid Game are both battle royale styled kind of content on Netflix. And like the Hunger Games thing is kind of like, I don't know, cliche at this point for me. I don't know. But
Yeah, I
like
don't need
Squid
a
Game.
story to have deathmatch. I just need to start killing people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I even saw all Hunger Games all the way through. I think I did end up seeing most of them. I'm going to use the Matt Cat excuse, but slightly different is that this is because my sister watched them all, so I had to as well. Much like with all the series of Friends all the day, every day. But I think I've seen most of them. And yeah, I don't know. I think the first one, from what I recall, had a relatively interesting life outside of the mere killing and the battle royale stuff. There was a bit of interesting setup. And some of the characters, at least they could have been taken into interesting places. But after that, it very much, did lapse into that. Well, why am I watching these boring people talking cliche when I really just want to watch them kill each other because they're insufferable? And it will be interesting to see whether or not this film, because it is a prequel, I guess, because it does have a lot more to set up in a way, whether or not it gets that balance right, or if it is going to take more of a hue toward the setup as opposed to the battle. And do more exploration of the world and the politics and how the world comes to be as generic and cliche as it is in the original films. That will be interesting to see. But if it's the origin story of the snow guy, maybe they will.
Yeah, it is. He's the main character, and it's all through his perspective. So, yeah, and he falls in love and everything and all that bullshit. But he's like the person mentoring to the girl. What's her face? Baird, I think her name is, and yeah, it's all through his perspective. But then he ends up being a total douche. So it's like they try to make you feel bad for him, and you're like, I don't know, I don't feel bad for him. He's a douche. But like, I don't know. It's not a good book in my opinion. So I don't think the movie's gonna be good. But when I say there's a lot of singing, I am not fucking around. It's like every chapter there is a song in almost every single chapter, and I was just like, this is gonna be a musical, and it's gonna be terrible. I'm like, this is just, it's gonna be bad. But we'll see, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, Tolkien wrote a lot of songs, and Peter Jackson, the way he chose to incorporate them into the movies was definitely not a musical, but it had that lyrical, poetic kind of tone that it captured from Tolkien really, really well, I thought.
I agree. I don't think the director of this though is this
no,
going to do the
maybe
same
not.
thing.
Yeah.
And Peter Jackson backgrounded a lot of that stuff, so a lot of the stuff that is quite front and center of the books comes in as effectively just mise en scène in the film. So the Lament for Gandalf, for example, is actually referenced as opposed to really heard. And then some of the other overt musical stuff is just cut. So Eowyn's Lament for Theodred is not in the theatrical version. It is in the extended version. I don't know. The rest of that scene works. I'm not sure if the song really does, but you're right. You get the impression of like very, very intense musicality to the world, but without ever actually devolving into just generic Hollywood musical, which is a triumph, and it makes the whole thing better.
Yeah, and then when Pippin, I can't remember the name of the song or the one he sings to Denethor.
Yeah, which actually I don't think is in. I don't remember. No. I think that one isn't in the book. Didn't he pitch that to Peter Jackson? He said, I would like to sing a song. And Peter Jackson said, okay, have a go. And so he did.
So, yeah. And it was stunningly like cinematic, and it was perfect. I think Tolkien would have loved it.
Right on.
Yeah.
I agree.
But yeah, music can work in films, but whether it works in the Hunger Games is anything. Well, we'll have to see. Are the trailers? I'm assuming there are trailers out already. Is there much singing and dancing in the trailers, Matt?
No. They have not alluded to their singing in the trailers at all. That's why I'm all like,
the deep dark secret.
Yeah, I'm all like, oof. And she does the writer Susan Collins. She does this thing where she did like in Star Wars where they have to explain every single thing that happens in the Hunger Games trilogy, and I'm like, you don't have to explain every single thing. Like, I mean, she explains everything, like everything that happened in those books. It's like she has to tell you where it came from, and I'm all like, maybe, we don't need to know, where this, song came from, or where this, specific, I don't know, embroidery pattern came from. We don't need to know every single detail, honey. Maybe some things just pop up out of nowhere, kind of thing.
Yeah, see, I understand the temptation to include all of that, but I don't know if that really matches the audience for the Hunger Games. So with Tolkien's, again, a good comparison, because in Tolkien, almost everything is explained somewhere in either the Silmarillion or the Lost Tales or something else. There's a huge amount of underpinning world building, which is all explained in one text or another. But that's because the kind of story he's telling is the kind of thing which encourages people to go and look that up. I don't know if your average Hunger Games fan is the type of person to go back and say, yes, I really want to do a deep dive into the lore of whatever the place they live in. I don't even remember what that's called anymore. Place.
No.
Place.
I have been on a lot of streams lately. but thank you. You're being very kind. I appreciate it. Magnus.
Is this another one of your sock puppets?
No, his sock puppets all super chat how pretty he is.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Joker 2 also.
When's that out? I'm assuming that's next year.
It is next year, yeah.
And that's also a musical, isn't it? With Lady Gaga in it.
Yeah, from what I understand, though. Oh, you don't like Lady Gaga?
No.
Oh,
I do.
I like her. I mean,
All right.
she was the only thing in that Gucci movie that I liked, but
You didn't like Jared Leto.
I mean, I like Jared Leto, but he was so silly in that movie. I was like, he made a choice, and I don't know if it was the right one.
She was fantastic in A Star Is Born. I thought that movie
She
was
was.
stunning. And
Yeah, I just recently watched that like a month
So
ago. It was very good. I enjoyed it a lot. So
Why do we keep trying to bring back A Star Is Born? I think it's flopped every time it's been made, and deservedly so.
I thought that I haven't seen the first two original ones where it's an actor instead of I don't know if the second one was a singer songwriter, but I did watch the 1970s one, and that movie was just
one.
I thought that movie was terrible. I was like, I couldn't wait to be done with that movie. But I thought this one was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was sad and stuff, but yeah. We shall see. Maybe this will be she'll do a bad job and people realize she can't act. Who knows?
She's going to be nominated for an Academy Award.
I do hear that a lot.
So of the rest of this year, then, I'm conscious we have skipped over the Marvels, but I think everyone's already exhausted themselves, laughing at the prospect of the Marvels. So maybe we can. We've only got a couple of months to wait. We'll wait for the Marvels and we'll shit on it when it comes out. After Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes comes Wonka. Is anybody excited for Wonka?
Hell no.
I think it
Kind of.
No. I mean, like, there are things I see in the trailer that I'm like, that's kind of interesting, but I'm not excited is not a word I would use for this movie. And I probably won't see it opening weekend. I don't know if I'll see it in the movie theater because I'm like, but we'll see what I have to do that weekend when it comes out.
Yeah, I just like Timothy Chalamet. I've seen him in enough things that he's a cool, like, up and coming young actor. I think Bones and All is probably my favorite of his movies. It's a kind of a indie horror movie about cannibalism. He's fantastic in it. I don't know. I just think I want to see what he does with it. I think the trailer is maybe hiding some of the more dark. I hope some of the more darker elements of the movie. I hope the whole movie's not like just corny Wonka stuff.
Right.
That's always the risk with someone like Timothy Chalamet, is that because I always want him to be good because he's really nice to look at. So I like seeing him in things. But whether or not he's actually good as an actor, I'm not sure. I think he was quite good in Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah,
in
June, watch Bones and All. It's really good.
I must go and see that then because I want to see what range he really has. Because I know a few people cite Dune as an example of him being quite limited, but I think that's actually a fault of the source material as opposed to the acting, because Paul Atreides in the books is also he's barely really a character. He's very much an excuse for things to happen. He's the thing around which the world revolves as opposed to being an actual person involved in events. So I don't necessarily hold that performance against him. I think he does a good enough job with what he's given, but I don't remember seeing him in anything where I think you are absolutely as good an actor as your reputation suggests, which I guess is the problem. But Bones and All sounds like it might be that example.
Yeah.
Oh, that Wonka trailer it seemed like the most generic thing. I've like watching,
Yeah.
and there's no excuse there with like it's the source material because Wonka's we've seen Johnny Depp and
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder play it, and you can do all kinds of things with that character. And he just, when I watch him act, it's like when I watch The Rock. You know what I mean? Like it's like watching someone who is an actor, but
With the role they're playing as themselves.
yeah, like I'm watching you act. I'm not actually watching a performance.
That's a
Right.
good point. Yeah.
Well, I think, I mean, any actor, so they come to you and go, okay, there's a Willy Wonka movie and you're going to play Willy Wonka, fire that agent. Because, I mean, it's like, okay, we're going to do a remake of Casablanca. I'll pass. There's no way you win on this. And especially given some of the modern treatments that we've had of remakes, just stay the hell away from that.
Yeah. Plus, this is I read that book when I was younger, the first one. Is this based off of a book? Because I don't remember him.
No.
It was more like that Gene Wilder movie. The book was, or at least the first one that I read. It wasn't like how he made his chocolate factory. So, and again, are we do we really care how Willy Wonka came up with his factory? I just want to see those littles running around singing. You know,
I like the mystery. I almost wish we don't have an origin.
Yeah.
Right.
My question is this in the same universe as the Wonka, the original Wonka movie?
The Wonka cinematic universe. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? Because
Is it in the Gene Wilder universe?
yeah, because when stuff
I
comes out,
honestly don't know.
it's like, is it or is it not a prequel? Like people thought Rings of Power was a prequel of the Jackson movies, and it's really not. And it's and this happens occasionally. I don't think the new Mad Max movie is a sequel to the you know what I mean. So I'm wondering if Willy Wonka is, if this is a prequel directly,
It's a multiverse.
or I don't know.
I guess the problem will be that that's how it's treated. If you're telling any audience that we're going to do the origin story of Willy Wonka, then most people's experience of Willy Wonka as a character is going to be, say, the
Yeah.
Gene Wilder film. So it's, even if the film isn't written consciously and deliberately to tie into the events of the original film, I think for the general audience, those who have any pre-existing knowledge at all will assume that that's what it is. It's a younger version of a character we already know. So it's hard to escape that prequel thing. I think Rings of Power is similar, except that they did also bill it kind of as a prequel, and it's supposed to be a prequel. It just fails at the task. Oh, that's next year as well. Oh, yes. Content. I've got stuff to do.
Yes.
I thought Rings of Power was built as a prequel to, from the like a book adaptation. I don't. Did they ever say it was like, oh, this is the beginning of the Jackson trilogy before? You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm.
Well, I
maybe
guess
I'm
it's
crazy.
because the Jackson films are about as close to a book adaptation of The Lord of the Rings as you can get, which is one of the many reasons that they are so beloved and successful. So, in a sense, being a prequel to the Jackson films is still being a prequel to the books. If they did, I don't know if they. I'm pretty sure they didn't explicitly say that this was the prequel as told in the books because they famously didn't have the rights to any of that. So and they did they've gone for a few little things which try to link it into the Jackson films. That obviously the same composer to do parts of what they did. They got Ben McCreary to do most of it. I think they got Howard Shore in to do a little bit. And some of the visuals again are designed to evoke everyone's memories of the filmic universe. So I think it was billed as a prequel is its own problem because it's nothing really to do with anything that we actually know about the Lord of the Rings. But
Yeah, the Rings of Power it should be like most movies that say inspired by true events, which means that maybe a name is shared, but everything else is made to hell up. That's kind of the relationship with Tolkien's work.
Oh, those are really annoying. So, because I think I mentioned Foundation earlier on Apple, but Foundation's the same. It's called Foundation. It shares loads of the same names. It's nothing like the books. There's nothing in there which at all bears any resemblance to the books except for the names.
Really?
And so most of the interesting stuff is the stuff that isn't even in the books. And that's the stuff they really should have doubled down on. But then they copy at the very, very loosest sense the overall plot skeleton of, say, like the first 3 of the Foundation books. But nothing in it actually makes any sense because it's just, oh god, yeah, it's something special. It's kind of the Rings of Power, except that no one cares enough about Foundation to be annoyed about it.
Right. The I think the first movie that I ever saw where I was like, wait, no, that were clearly the same name. There is a vague shadow of the same plot, but absolutely entirely different story and shouldn't have been shared. Is The Running Man? That was originally a Stephen King short story, and that short story is pretty damn good, and it has nothing to do with the movie.
Speaking of The Running Man, there's a book called The Long Walk by Richard
Yep.
Bachman.
I
who's
love
Stephen
The Long
King.
Walk.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's a battle royale. That is
Yeah,
a really
that's
good
that's
one.
essentially the Hunger Games type thing. Yeah.
It's really good. It's
It
about
is really good.
Mm-hmm.
kids who are forced to walk for some sort of sadistic, like, you know, I can't remember, it was a dictatorial or totalitarian government or something. And they're just forced to walk between a certain mile per hour, or else if you fall below 2 miles an hour or something, you get shot.
The competition, I believe, is actually for food for the family.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so again, it's very Hunger Games. Yeah, and you have to. The whole
You have to
group, they start
maintain a
walking.
speed.
They have to maintain a certain pace. There is no rest. Last one alive wins.
Yep.
Is it bad that I think that actually sounds like a really good idea? Because
It
like
is.
often I'm walking through London and I think I would make you people wear indicators and I would have you have a minimum speed limit and you're not allowed to randomly stop at shop windows. That's really annoying. You're getting in
Yes.
the way. Fuck off.
Also, you're walking on the wrong side of the damn sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right. Walk on sidewalks like you drive. You know, walk on that side. There you go.
Right on.
So on the Wonka thing, so I've never really been one for Willy Wonka. So is there a source material and that this is drawing from? Is there like a prequel book that this is supposed to be based on?
I
don't
don't.
know.
I only read the first. I think there's a couple of books, but I only read the first book, and I read it in elementary school. And it was very good from what I can remember, but I don't remember there being anything about his life before the factory. But there is a cool part with this vicious kid in there that I hope they put in there, but I'm pretty sure they won't. But yeah, we'll see.
David Casper in the chat says they're making Rendezvous with Rama, which is another. Well, that's Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, it's Arthur Clarke.
Foundation is Asimov, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Rendezvous with Rama is Villeneuve. I think wants to do that one, right? I
Is he
could be
just trying
good.
to hit all of the
Apologies on
classic sci-fi?
Yeah, dude. I love Rama. It's so interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to, because I'm sure I read Rendezvous with the Rama, but I can't remember which one it is. 'cause
It's
it
the
must have
one
been
about. Do
years.
you know, like the Ouroboros asteroid that kind of looked like an alien spaceship that was like flying through our solar system a couple years ago? People thought it was like an alien, but it was like a
Mama.
really elongated.
Oh, yeah.
That's the story of Rama. So they it's the same kind of thing, and they actually land on it to try to figure out. And it turns out to be a metallic cylinder, and
Right.
that's Rama. Yeah.
I'm not sure I actually have read that one then.
Mhm.
There's a few of the Arthur Clarke ones that I read. I think City in the Stars is one. Childhood's End. I think there was a TV adaptation of that quite recently, which was not particularly good, but I always liked the idea of turning that into a film. But I like that there are people around who are going to these old sci-fi classics and actually trying to do something new with them. It's not just let's do another Star Wars, let's do another Star Trek, and let's do another Star Wars after that.
I want more original stuff. Like that's why I think James Cameron is. People don't like Avatar, but I think let him do his thing. It's his original kind of story. It's not a reboot or a remake or something. And then, but even adaptations are fine because I think adaptations are great. I've never had a problem with adaptations. And then Bradley Cooper is trying to do Hyperion, which is I hope that happens. Like that's a big sci-fi book that has a big following, kind of like Dune.
Well,
But
we
I
had a
love-
great,
Yeah,
we had
I
a great
love
run in the
adaptations.
'80s where at Philip K. Dick. A
Philip K.
lot
Dick.
of movies were getting made with that. Then
Yep.
it's Heinlein. Then moving on, where we start to get Gibson,
Yeah.
and the cyberpunk guys, and then it
Bradbury.
just became right. Well, I mean, we had the TV series for the Martian Chronicles.
Yeah, and then we
back
had
in the
the
80s.
Something Wicked This Way Comes out
Right.
in the 80s. It was pretty
Right.
decent. It was okay.
Yeah, with Jason
The book's
Robards.
amazing. The book is fantastic.
Yeah.
Bradbury is my favorite author. He's so good.
Yeah,
I think in that
and of
sense,
course they made Paradigm
uh,
451 earlier.
Mhm.
Yeah. In that sense, I think I prefer adaptations to original, because my problem with Avatar is that it's not. I mean, it seems
Right.
like this new concept, it's a new IP, but
Right.
actually, how original is it really? And compared to the great stories that are out there, which either haven't been adapted yet, or were adapted decades ago, or haven't been adapted well,
Right.
anything by Clark, Asimov, Heinlein, Ray Bradbury, there are so many people who actually put thought behind their stories, which I don't think anyone could fairly accuse James Cameron of doing. So that's more of that would be good, but do it right. Give it to someone who actually reads what they're doing before they adapt it. And I think I get the impression of Denny. I can't ever pronounce the fucking name. That one. I always get the sense that he at least reads what he's adapting before he tries to adapt it. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, but like Cameron wrote Avatar in the 90s, so it has that very dated, Dances with Wolves, kind of vibe to it. So I don't really knock it too much because I know it was written in the 90s. But yeah, it's just not super original. Like Hyperion is unbelievably original. There's nothing like it. Nothing.
And then you have
2001. Was
the short
story.
He wrote that with and alongside Arthur C. Clarke. So it was Kubrick and Clarke writing it together. Clarke was writing the novel as Kubrick was writing the screenplay. And then so they differ in a couple of elements. So I think in the book they're going to Saturn, and in the film they're going to Jupiter. The book is much more didactic, so you understand more about what is going on, obviously, than you do with the Kubrick film, which is supposed to be deliberately ambiguous.
Right.
And then there were whole I think Kubrick's original idea for the end of that was that he wanted the Star Child to detonate all the nukes on the planet, and Kubrick said no because he'd recently done he'd recently done something which had a similar Dr. Strangelove. That was the one. He didn't want to be pigeonholed, so then they changed that as well. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of beyond the time I think where we can work alongside the great sci-fi writers because there's no one of their status anymore.
No,
but at least you can go back to their works and you can say, well, this either hasn't been done or should be done better. Let's have a look at this. I would be all in favor of that.
And by the way, 2010 is an underrated sequel to 2001.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about it's weird because a lot of people have a problem when you change the source material, especially lately. It's like, oh, don't mess with the source material. But 2001 and The Shining and Blade Runner and Jurassic Park are all very changed. Like the films are not really like the original source material at all. But all four of those are great examples where I think they're maybe better than the books, especially Jurassic Park. I like more than the book, and Blade Runner is arguable too, to be honest.
What do you think? I think there's a
what is going on there?
Well, so the goodwill has been burnt up, right? I don't trust you to actually improve upon the work or to at least provide a novel adaptation that's trustworthy. So if you're going to be a bit of a clown, shut up and just do exactly what's written down. Follow the directions.
Right.
I think there's also a difference when it comes to making wholesale changes to source material as to there is the question of intent, i.e., are you adapting along the lines that the creator wanted it to? So Jurassic Park is a good example. There aren't a huge number of massive changes to the thematic elements of Jurassic Park, but Spielberg changes John Hammond's character from boilerplate villain to someone who is much more endearing and someone much more understandable, someone whose grand ideas fall apart, which arguably actually bolster the book version or the book's message more than the character in the book does. But then the other aspect as well is that to what extent are you improving on what's been done before? Like, it's one thing to adopt a fairly average novel, say Jurassic Park again is a good example, a fairly average novel by a guy he's brilliant at concepts, but his prose is dog shit, and he's not necessarily the most character-driven of characters. Like, if you're making that better and you're keeping the same thematic elements and you're simply saying, look, this is a really good story, here's how you tell it better, that's different from saying, I'm going to take, for example, The Lord of the Rings, and to use their quote, we'll tell the story that Tolkien never could.
Right.
Yeah, and that's evidently not happened, has it?
But Dr. Malcolm...
to be fair, he couldn't tell that story. That was shit. He had too much self-respect.
I thought Dr. Malcolm in the movie is so much more endearing and interesting and funny, and the book is so cynical, and I don't even like the character. That's
kind of the 2D characters of Crichton. Crichton's really he has great ideas for short stories and sadly turns them into books.
The Andromeda Strain is a good example of that. I think the Andromeda Strain starts off really well. All of his premises are really, really interesting, But you can swap any character from any of his books with any other character in any other book, and nothing changes because they're all basically the same. Whereas Spielberg comes along and they combine together, and Spielberg is brilliant at character stuff. And Spielberg says that, well, this is how we can just basically, make people enjoy the characters that you've created for us, as opposed to just suffering them as they move the plot along. And so it improves it. So I guess, that's one of the bigger differences. Like, are you improving whilst remaining faithful, or are you just desecrating and making everything worse?
M. Night Shyamalan just adapted Knock at the Cabin last year, and he changed the ending, and there was a big debate on whether or not he improved it or he didn't improve it. And I actually think it sounds to me like he improved it. I like his ending. It's more optimistic. I'm not a fan of the movie The Mist, simply because I think the ending is pure shock value, and it's just like ew. It just makes me feel miserable. But that's what the vibe I was getting from the Knock at the Cabin book ending. So I don't know.
Well, doesn't The Mist kind of just end on a cliffhanger in the book? You don't really.
I don't know. Oh, the novel, the short story or whatever.
Right, yeah.
I don't remember, but I think it does.
Yeah. Don't they get on a bus and just drive away into the mist?
Yeah.
And you don't know whether they're going to survive or not.
Yeah, and then Darabont's like, Tom Jane, you're a good actor. Can you make us depressed, please? Yeah.
I think I would have almost preferred just the open ending of like, do they survive? What is the mist? And it's like,
right.
Yeah, I think I would have more preferred that.
Yeah.
That's not dissimilar to The Shining as well. I mean, The Shining is an interesting case in point because we know that the author didn't like the film.
Right.
And so that's useful for sort of exploring what matters about authorial intent and what doesn't matter. And I, to my mind, the Kubrick film is probably the way the book should have ended. Stephen King has this unfortunate habit of ending everything with an explosion, which is not like the most interesting way you could possibly wrap these things up. But the rest of it, it's been so many years since I've read The Shining, but the rest of it I don't think really tramples on what Stephen King was doing. I just think it deploys it in a better way, and then it makes more important changes later on. Stephen King didn't like it very much, but then there is a limit to how much you pay attention to authorial intent. The classic example, just as a thought experiment, is to say, well, what if the author changes his mind? Does that mean that the content of his art has changed as well? And to my mind, the answer to that question is usually no, which again proves that there's a limit to how much the author's intent can really be factored in when you're analyzing a work of fiction. But in terms of when people get upset about it, it really does come down to, are you being faithful to something good, or are you improving something mediocre? And if you're doing neither of those things, then you probably shouldn't be doing it.
I agree.
So with that in mind, do we think that Wonka will be improving something good, or?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm going to say no.
No.
Probably not.
Oh, no, there. In which case, I think to round off this section and 2023 in terms of upcoming films, Aquaman. Yay. Matt, you like Aquaman, don't you?
I love Aquaman, but this movie is gonna high flop. How you doing? It's not gonna be good, but
Didn't you like the first one?
I did like the first one. I like the first one a lot. It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Then what makes you think this one won't be?
Because I think that it's going to have heavy messaging from what I've been seeing online from scoopers and stuff. It's just about climate change and shit. Nobody wants to hear that nonsense. And then they've got the Amber Heard situation. And I mean, I don't know, maybe that'll be, minimized and everything. Plus, I think that, I had a point I was going to say. I don't think it's going to be good because nobody's interested in these movies anymore because they're going nowhere. And like me, I'm a huge Aquaman fan, but I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. So what's the point? I don't know if they can still take a tax write-off for it, but I wish they would just do it, because if you're just going to make the character that I love, if you're just going to make a shitty movie, then don't do it. I'd rather you not see this movie than you ruin a character that I love than get an Aquaman movie. Yeah, I don't know if that made sense or not. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be good. I don't. And they've done like 3 reshoots. That's insane.
Sadly, they didn't shoot it with a good script, so they only have what they have. I think that the DC movies are again kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the Hunger Games and the social bandwagon has kind of died. It was never as big as Marvel, but it was kind of like the retarded younger brother that got to hang around. There's no real passion for this now, and doubly so. You pissed off the Snyder bots, so they're gone. All of this is meaningless, and the shine is off of just comic movies in general. So I don't know why anybody thinks this is going to make any money other than, okay, we'd already spent and we've got to release it contractually.
Given most Snyder fans are robots, though, is that really going to dent the performance of the film? Like all the people online who say restore the Snyder Cut, or like Blue Beetle failed because it's not Zack Snyder's, and they all have a suspicious number of numbers in their Twitter handle.
Well, I mean, Snyder hasn't programmed them to go see Aquaman, so no, they're definitely not showing up.
Yeah.
It's whenever Zack Snyder comes up in any video script of mine, I usually use footage of battle droids from the Phantom Menace, just because it's basically the same people. I mean, is there? Yeah, I'm assuming, because I've fallen out of touch with who's been recast and who hasn't been recast and who's carried on and who isn't. Is Jason Momoa definitely out then as Aquaman? Is that confirmed?
It is not confirmed. We do not know if he is out as Aquaman, but I think that going forward they should just recast everybody. But yeah, no, there's nothing on concrete as far as if he's playing Aquaman going forward. And the rumor is he's playing Lobo, so I don't know if he's going to.
Who is Lobo, and why does it sound like an abbreviation of lobotomy?
He's an alien bounty hunter. He's like this big like biker guy, but he's got like white skin.
He has a unique look.
Yeah, he looks
He's
like
Lobo Fett. Okay.
Lobots, brother.
Yeah. He like rides a motorcycle around space and everything. He's pretty cool.
Hang on.
Does he ride them on space whales?
No. He just
Very
like rides it through space, like like a biker, but with
but in space.
But in space, yeah.
Space, dude. Come on.
It all becomes clear now.
Yeah, at least I think he's pretty cool.
I mean, he's cool.
Yeah.
And is Aquaman 2 also definitely not leading in, or is this like a Blue Beetle situation where if it performs well, it's the first James Gunn film, and if it doesn't, it's not?
I don't think so. I think it's just I think they're just putting it out because they're like, well, we made it, we might as well just put it out there and everything. But I don't know if they can take another tax write-off or not. I don't know all the rules around that situation. But if it was me, even though I love the character, I say get the money back if you can, because it's not going to be good. And this is, I'm a huge, he's my favorite DC character. I don't think this movie is going to be good, which makes me sad, but
I'm sorry, Aquaman is your favorite DC character.
He is. He's been my favorite DC character since I was a kid. Yeah, love him. He's great.
Wonder Woman, you hop in the invisible jet. So the Batman, you figure out the crime. Aquaman, you talk to fish.
He might be able to, the fish might know some stuff. You never know. Yeah.
I was
just
trying to find a Lobo picture, but I can't find a good one. That's what I'm preoccupied with right now.
Oh, gotcha. There are some good pictures out there of him.
Just put Lobot on there and erase the T.
Cynic is also putting Rule 34 after it, so like he's trying to find the really, really good one.
Do we have any hope for DC in general?
Well, I was kind of wondering if we have any hope for comics in general, given that we're how many years removed from Endgame, and we've gone from, oh my goodness, how many billions will this make, to, oh, can they claim this as a tax write-off? It's not like a good trajectory for superhero films generally.
Yeah, no, I think the shine is off on it, and I mean they killed it. The general shit that they released, and we've seen cycles like this before, where okay, this is the hot genre, and then everybody releases as much as they can, trying to cash in, and it just poisons the well, and then that genre has to die for a decade.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
I actually liked the Batman movie, the new one. So that's the only really superhero movie that I'm kind of hyped for the sequel.
Same.
Yeah, I mean that one's kind of polarizing, but that is clearly an example of like the most well-received probably sequel that like movie that we'll be getting in the next few years. Do you think another movie has a bigger following than the Batman franchise?
I think a Spider-Man 4 would have
Oh
a lot
yeah,
of
maybe.
goodwill behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
Well, those are the two most
Across
popular
the
superheroes.
Spider-Verse movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I like
Yeah,
that movie.
I think if Sony can manage their pacing, they can continue to make money
yeah.
off of Spider-Man, which kind of puts lie to the oh my god, everybody's tired of superheroes. It's just we're tired of shit superheroes.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is hope. I just think that you have to have a competent writer to write a story that's decent, and I think Marvel, their biggest problem was they just kept putting out so much stuff that they were just like, just hire any asshole that'll write a good anything, and it wasn't good. And then we're just tired of seeing crappy movies and TV shows. So
I go back and forward on the fatigue point though, because phases 2 and in particular 3 of the MCU had loads of absolute shit in them. And yet people still turned up to watch them because there was something over the top of them to be invested in, which I think is an incredibly important missing piece of the current, general superhero slate. But also people were more forgiving because there was still the promise of something better coming. The fact that people probably are not as scathing of Iron Man 3 as they are of anything in Phase 4, even though Iron Man 3 is not that far above Phase 4 in terms of quality, I think probably does speak to a meta tiring of superheroes. Blue Beetle, for example, is better than most of, in fact, any DC film that came out in the last several years. It's probably slightly better than most of Phases 4 and 5 of Marvel, and yet it's bombed, and that's because no one gives a shit. Whereas back in the day, I think, if that had released around the time of Phase 1, people might have been interested in that because there was a general interest, which has now seeped away. I don't know if that is entirely attributable to bad writing.
I think you're correct that the big social bandwagon, right? The preference cascade that kind of everybody has to go see the Marvel, movies, latest Marvel thing because that's how you identify as a member of a social group, right? That's ended. I think that there will still be audiences for good superhero movies, but it will return to a more niche audience. And again, those fans of comic books and those heroes or whatever, they're going to be a hell of a lot more demanding than just I showed up so that I could tweet that I too had seen the movie and we can all pat each other on the back for having seen the movie together.
You wonder as well whether there needs to be a contraction in terms of the amount of them, the amount of new characters, the amount of new shows, the amount of new films, because I think it's not coincidental that the Batman, which I don't think was a perfect film, I thought it was pretty mid, but it next to everything around it, it looks very, very good. The Batman does incredibly well. There probably is quite a lot of latent interest in Superman. The Spider-Man stuff, even the animated Spider-Verse films have done very, very well. Those are immediately recognizable to a huge audience. There's not a huge amount of appetite yet, or at the moment anyway, for newer entrants that no one cares about a character called Blue Beetle because no one's heard of him already. So maybe contracting and only really focusing on building something new off of the back of those old mainstays, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. You can't really do Iron Man, even though there's a multiverse, so we could, but hopefully we won't. But anyway, going back to those very recognizable names and building something out of those, as opposed to just, Agatha, the Hawkeye spin-off. What if Miles Morales was everyone?
Well, I think also the Batman benefited from a construction of scale, right? It became a street level, local story again, which is far more identifiable and understandable for audiences versus is Multiverse 87 and we're getting in also time travel and maybe we can throw in some hyperspace whales. Shut up, nobody cares.
Right.
I mean, I would argue the
hyperspace. Something I wanted to say about Batman. I think people respect the photography in that movie because it's just there's something about that movie that has like a sophisticated just they took it seriously. All the lighting was natural. Matt Reeves is actually a pretty good director. Even if you thought the movie was mid, it's kind of long. It's not the best detective story, but at least they put effort into the technical side of it, and it's not just this conveyor belt movie. It's just a totally different vibe than a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's gritty and grimy
Yeah.
street level, and much like the best
Yeah.
Marvel product that came out, which is Daredevil on Netflix.
Right.
That's a
Winter
gritty,
Soldier. Winter Soldier is pretty good.
I do like Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but again, very gritty.
Yes.
It's
Action.
not. Look
Yeah.
at all the sparklies and the giant CGI bullshit that just came out of the sky.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you compare it with Ant-Man Quantumania, the Quantumverse is just, it's a reskin of a multiverse. It makes no more sense than the multiverse. It's incomprehensible. The stakes are so massive. We can destroy infinite amounts of infinite people, and this is bad. And then you tell the audience, what does that mean? And I haven't got a clue. I don't know what that means. But Spider-Man is popular because Spider-Man is generally much more localized. In fact, if anything, I think if there's a flaw with the Spider-Verse films, it's that their multiverse stuff, which they've now introduced, probably will end up dragging the whole thing down because there's already problems with the way that came across in the last of those films. It's people want things that are comprehensible and tangible, and that usually means local first. All of Phase 1 began with local stories, and then it built slowly, and it gradually got bigger, and then it ended, and then everything went back to normal. But then they kicked off straight away with, and now let's times it by infinity.
Mm-hmm.
And please, you have to care about this. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I don't, like, what is the threat of Kang destroying infinite numbers of Ant-Man? I don't really care about one Ant-Man. I don't care about infinite numbers of them. If he kills one, there's an infinite number of others. It's not an actual realizable threat. So there's nothing really to latch onto there.
Yeah, and it's also nothing relatable or conceivable, right? There's infinite. All right, everybody's checked out because our brains just don't really grok infinite other than mathematical abstractions. And I think that there's a certain vibe that shows up in media based on like the economic and social situations that are going on. If you look at the 70s, in addition to having pretty bad hangover post-Vietnam, in U.S. and then also oil crises, and then Carter coming in, and we have to invent an entire new economic term to describe how bad things are. The movies themselves became gritty, street level problems that normal people understand, and very anti-hero and dark, right? Which is one of the reasons that you have a couple of big movies that pop and are ludicrously successful by contrast, like Star Wars, which was awfully hopeful in a time that everybody was kind of dark and in their own misery. And I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to return to something more like the Batman, because that's the kind of mood and that society is going to be operating in for a while.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. Yeah, when there is this general impression of lawlessness and crime on the streets, and everyone feels poorer and feels vulnerable, then you get the rise in popularity of heroes like the Batman, and even like Spider-Man, people who deal with these local sort of crime issues on a day-to-day basis. And those resonate. And, there are parts of the world, parts of England, parts of America, where that's increasingly true, and where those stories probably would resonate more than this generic multiversal nonsense. Even Star Wars, you can understand in the context of the Cold War, everything being very dark and serious, and this seemingly existential conflict between an empire and the side of liberty and freedom. And hey, let's just extrapolate as far as possible, make that fantastical, make it optimistic and hopeful, as opposed to dark and gritty and all about political intrigue. And lo and behold, it turns out to be incredibly popular. I just don't, maybe that is the reason at the moment the superhero films just don't have a conception of what the zeitgeist is. So they're not telling stories that anybody feels and resonates with.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is, so the 70s, you could argue that you had a couple of pseudo superheroes, and the most obvious one is Dirty Harry. It's a guy that's going up against the corruption of the system and the crime and all that, right? All the things that people are looking at. And he's just like, I'm going to play by different rules, and I'm going to carry the most powerful handgun in the world, could blow your head clean off. And there's a reason they made a ton of those movies.
Yeah, I mean, Drive was a cult classic, and he was channeling a lot of early Eastwood stuff. Ryan Gosling. That's a very popular movie. Well, I want more movies like that, man.
Yeah, I like that movie a lot.
Yeah.
Really
Oh well, The Fall Guy. The Fall Guy comes out with Ryan Gosling in January, I think, and that's an 80s action series adaptation of I don't know. That could be a really good
Yeah,
movie.
with
That's the guy who
Lee
directed.
Majors.
Yeah, it's the guy who did Bullet Train. So I mean, I think it might be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Is Bullet Train the one with Brad Pitt?
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
I never got around to seeing that. Was that worth seeing?
I have a bad take on it. I don't like it at all. I thought it was like trying too hard to be Guy Ritchie and Tarantino, but that's just me. Everybody likes it apparently.
I liked it. I thought it was action packed, which I always love, and I like the fight sequences. I thought it was kind of funny at times. Not kind of funny. It was funny at times. I laughed, but what you just said there that it was trying to be Tarantino. I totally get that too. So that's a good point. Yeah. But I did like it, so I can't help what I like.
My review of it was an AI ChatGPT type is imitating Guy Ritchie, imitating Shane Black, imitating Tarantino, and it was just like this rabbit hole of. I just didn't think it was very interesting, but that's just me. A lot of people like it.
No, you are not allowed to have bad media takes. What are you doing here?
You just hate everything.
No.
I mean, it's no money plane.
Yeah.
So I take it from the fact that we spent all of that time not talking about Aquaman that no one's particularly excited for Aquaman. So that's usually a good sign.
Most people don't even know it's coming out still, so they don't. They've literally there's no trailers. We've only seen I think 2 very small clips way back. I think last year during DC Fandom, the second one, and that's it. It's not. Yeah, nobody's excited for it. Not even me, and I love Aquaman.
I mean, I'm already prejudiced against it just because it shouldn't be out on fucking Christmas Day. No sensible person goes to the cinema on Christmas Day. It's just not right.
I don't go to the movies either on Christmas Day, but you'd be surprised at how many people go. Yeah, go to the movies on Christmas.
It's a huge day.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's one of the biggest movie-going days of the year in America.
Yeah. Which when I found that out, I was like, that's insane. I've never went to the movies on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I don't really know anyone who goes to the movies on Christmas Day.
It's the same people that saw Avatar. I don't actually, I've never met anybody that actually saw that either.
Yeah.
That's a really funny point.
That's the biggest meme.
I don't know a lot of people who've seen it either.
It's literally the truth. I'll turn to my wife occasionally. It's like, okay, so is
people say that. I've always thought that was a meme because I know 40 people who've seen it. I don't even understand. It's made $2.5 billion.
Well, no, I know people saw it, but oddly enough, I don't.
That's the point. It made $2.5 billion. Yet I don't know people who saw it. How is this possible?
Well,
my mum did. My mum really liked the first Avatar. Because she headcanoned in an interesting story. It was really fascinating because she wanted to watch it a few months ago, so we put it on, and obviously I immediately got a headache. And then afterwards, like, why do you like this shit? And she came out with a really, really good story with really, really good characters, none of which was in the film.
He said, we should just turn this off. You have nothing but disappointment coming as you watch this.
If the thing you just told me about was the film we were watching, I would agree. That would be great. But it's not. You're just reading your own biases into this thing. It's quite impressive. You should maybe try making films. James Cameron has many billions to give you to write the story now.
Yeah, I can't wait for his... Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking that maybe this should be the thing that people should do when they go to the theaters is just make up their own stories. Okay, here's the visuals, turn off the sound for the dialogue, and let's just make up our own dialogue, and it'll be invent a movie, build a movie.
Mm-hmm. That'd be fun.
You can do that. I've not quite done it, but for the next Mandalorian video, which was meant to be out today, but given that it's 4.5 hours and I'd left myself too much to do, it's not out today, as people might have noticed. So that's going to come out next Sunday. But there is a bit at the end where I sort of thought, well, would this be, if I had much more time than I do, because I've recreated a single season of a much better, well, I think anyway, it's a much better sort of Star Wars show that combines all 3 of those seasons as well as the only only useful bits of Boba Fett, as well as the only useful bits of Ahsoka, all into one season, thereby saving a huge amount of money, which I think is better. And if I had more time, actually trying to tell that just via the imagery on the screen, which is silent, and so I can just narrate it, would be good. I've kind of abridged that version, so there is that in the video. It's just not fully there, and it's not out yet, but eventually it will be. But Avatar's a good example of and that would be fun to do. Just put it on mute. sit down with some people who actually know how to write things and just narrate it yourself, and like hire people to play the characters. You can just riff on each other. That could be quite good fun.
Yep.
And then you'll inevitably turn out with something which is genuinely more original and interesting than what we actually get. But yes. Right. Well.
I mean, well, it wasn't. There's a video game that has like a killer train that like stalks you around in the country.
Yeah,
that would be Zack Snyder's Thomas the Tank Engine.
Platoon. I actually kind of like Avatar, and I know somebody was trying to get us to have a conversation about it. I would still love to do that at some point. I think
right now.
Shit, yeah, that could
Do it right now.
I think Zach's was trying to set that up, and I lost touch with that. But
you
I
can
know I'd
set it up
definitely be
at
up
any
for that.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Once this video is done, in theory, I always say once the next video is done, I have way more time, and then something else comes up. But hopefully, after this video is done, and I'm not working on something which is 4.5 hours long, then that would be quite good fun to do. Because like my problem with Avatar is that like conceptually, and well, is it even that interesting conceptually? I think there's some interesting stuff in it conceptually.
Yeah.
I just think that it's much like, say, it's not dissimilar to Rogue One in the sense that there's no character there I really give a shit about. And there's no story there I really give a shit about. And the delivery on the premise is not all that interesting. And its thematic messaging is kind of just the most boilerplate, generic environmentalist stuff you can find. And I understand the point. Well, it was written back in the 1990s, and maybe back in the 1990s it might have been a bit more daring. But then he's had 30 years to rewrite it, and he didn't.
Right.
I mean, it also wasn't because we had Captain Planet, so the environmental messaging was already a thing.
Oh, fucking Star Trek: The Next Generation did environmental stuff.
Even Princess Mononoke in the 90s, 97 actually had way more nuanced environmentalist and even feminist and like just Miyazaki. That is one of the best movies I've ever seen personally.
Yeah, I love that movie.
But very similar. It's dances with it's the same story, but he puts his own spin on it with like Shintoism and Japanese kind of folklore and gods, and it's you know what I mean. It's just it's a lot more deep and nuanced.
Yeah, Nerdy Film Girl, you're right. We need a Captain Planet movie. I'm down with the sickness.
But I think that's the kind of the difference in James Cameron. Well, even just taking it with James Cameron's sort of oeuvre, then Titanic is pretty much it's Romeo and Juliet on a ship, right? But at least there's enough change that you can call that innovative. It's not as derivative as simply saying, well, this is a story that's been told. I am telling the exact same story in as close a way as possible without adding anything thematically or philosophically or in any way new to this, really. Whereas I think the problem with Avatar is that Avatar just strays from innovation into derivation. It becomes not, how can I combine these older influences to create brand new thing? It's more, well, how can I just do old thing again in a prettier way?
To include like some of the worst tropes, the magical natives that somehow, are peace and love and all that.
Yeah. I mean, my takeaway would be that the reason why I love the movie is purely spectacle rather than it's the same reason why I love Godzilla and Pacific Rim. Or Pacific Rim, and the original Godzilla. It's like, and a lot of martial arts films. I don't really care so much about story sometimes. Sometimes I don't care if it's, as long as it's not, a disaster. Some of my favorite movies have horrible stories. I mean,
I've always said that Avatar is a great tech demo,
right?
And kind of the state of the art, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like the demo scene for computers back in.
It's kind of the thing because I think Cynic got annoyed when I made this argument for John Wick, but I'm going to carry on making the argument because I think it works, which is that would it not have been so much better had it also had a really good story?
Sure, but then go back to a lot of early Hong Kong Jackie Chan films have terrible stories. But do people really go out and wish that those stories were better? I don't think so. I think people love the movies for the martial arts and the comedy.
Oh yeah, that's true. But there's a difference between enjoyment and quality, right? And I think that the point still holds. So you can say, well, people really enjoyed the old Jackie Chan films. Would they have enjoyed them more had their stories not been dog shit? Probably. Possibly. I would argue yes.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good point. That's a big discussion.
I mean, I think the original John Wick is very much like an old Western, the retired gunfighter.
Yeah, because you were saying that to me about John Wick 4, but John Wick 1 is the best of that entire series.
Yes,
so
it's the only really good one.
Right, like John Wick 4 would be better if it was as good as Part 1. But if you ask me that about Part 1, I don't know. I don't think John Wick really. What are you going to do to improve on that?
But that sort of
It's
bolsters
pretty
the point. John Wick
Yeah.
1 has probably the best in terms of plot and writing of all four of
Yeah.
those films, and
Yeah.
therefore it's probably the most enjoyable. It's the least improvable on that
Yeah.
score.
Right.
Would 4 have been better had it been more like 1? Yes. In which case, it would be better if it had a better story.
Yeah,
That
for
kind of
sure.
follows.
I agree with that.
Yeah, people do like the sort of mythological things that they've been introducing slowly, and they, the sort of, continental underground stuff. I think people like all that stuff. I would say the story, the writing, the dialogue has maybe suffered a little bit, and it's too convoluted now. But like, maybe they could have found a middle ground there somehow.
The action has become more cartoonish
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I do
action.
love though
I love it.
the first John Wick where they're putting out the order and they're typing on Commodore VIC 20s from 1980, and
Yeah,
it's like
that is
the
good.
idea of this entire
Yeah.
organization that's off the network that
Yeah.
has its own infrastructure because it's a secret crime organization. They handled some of that pretty interestingly, and then sadly we get into their actual organizational structures and go, wait, what? No, this makes no sense. What the hell?
Right. Yeah.
Because they had the right idea. There's only so many times you can redo John Wick 1. If 2, 3, and 4 had just been the same thing again, then people probably would have got bored. So they had the right idea in that you do have to develop it in some way. You have to add some kind of meta storyline to actually work toward. You need to develop your concept beyond just man is angry that his dog was killed, therefore revenge. Because there's the same reason that when Taken arguably didn't do that, and that's probably the reason Taken's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, have not been as well received as Taken 1 was, because they didn't do any of that. The problem is the more you start to try and do that, the more important the good writing becomes. Because if you do it incorrectly, if you do it in a nonsensical way, as I think John Wick 4 definitely did, then you kind of sacrifice the effect you're going for. But the intent was there, just the delivery was kind of lacking.
That's fair.
Hi, Andrew.
Andrew,
Hi.
what were
Why
you
are
eating?
you so late?
I had work, and then they were just like, you can stay. And I'm like, I can't. And they're like, you can stay. And I'm like, all right, I can stay, I guess.
All right, I can.
What were
He's
you
just trying
eating?
to earn his hatred.
I'm literally eating just bread.
Oh. Oh, okay. Look at you. Look at you.
Oh, the warden is pleased with you tonight. You get water and bread.
Yeah, water, yeah.
Right on.
Well, you've joined us pretty much, I think, at the close of the segment around like cancel things we are looking forward to, things that have been moved. Ostensibly, this last bit was based off of Aquaman, and we then spent no time talking about that. Is there anything you're looking forward to in the remainder of the year, Andrew, or anything you're sad to have seen cancelled or delayed?
Dune 2 was the only thing I cared about, so now I don't care about anything, and this year is useless.
This world is bullshit.
Yeah. I was like, I was at a point where I was like, man, this is kind of a good year for movies, at least. Like, I'm enjoying some of these. And then I was like, hey, Dune 2 is coming out. And then they canceled it. I'm like, this year sucks.
And now we will get the angry, angsty Andrew storyline that we've all waited for.
Yes.
Dude, right, Dave? I've always thought this too. How'd that tarantula live?
That is
I had a friend that actually had a pet tarantula that escaped, and he figured, it died. 6 months later, he found it under his bed. It was still alive, but much, much smaller, thinner than it was. But yeah, spiders don't jack around. They're pretty survivable.
God damn. Wow.
Who knew? Who knew?
Also, some of my least favorite creatures on the planet. I
Yes.
really don't like them.
Yeah, it's that and snakes, and I'm out.
Snakes is fine. I don't mind snakes. I don't really get why people don't. My dad really doesn't like them. Indiana Jones really doesn't like them. My dad is not Indiana Jones, but
They're just worms with teeth. It's fine.
and poison.
And poison, and
That's fine.
But spiders are just they're fucking horrible. There's too much stuff going on with them. They look too alien.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have an arrangement with spiders in my bedroom. If you're in the far opposite corner and that's where you stay, you can live. But like,
Yes.
encroach beyond that predefined territory, and I'm gonna hit you with stuff.
That's kind of my operating rule with snakes. Okay, there's a sphere around me. If you don't enter the circle, I'll allow you to live if I see you moving around. But if you step inside, you've sacrificed your life. I'm sorry.
Right on. Yeah, that's like every time. Like today, I got woke up at like 8 o'clock and I was trying to sleep in, but my daughter, Dad, there's a spider on the ceiling. I'm like, kill it. And they're like, we need you. And I'm like, oh, get the hell out of here. I had to go kill a freaking spider. I had to get a chair and everything.
In a way, though, that makes the worst creatures of all is the crane fly or the daddy long legs, because it's just a spider that flies and it has no respect for personal space, because it's like watching special needs sports day with daddy long legs. They just flounder all over. There's legs everywhere. It just doesn't work. They're horrible things. And they freaking invade this house all the time.
They're like teenagers that are just hitting puberty, and their legs and arms are way too long for the rest of their body.
And inexplicably, they fly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you knew that kid down at the corner. Yeah, he could sling a little something for you.
That's what happens when you give the kids them energy drinks. They just take off. But I guess, is there anything left to be said for the movie side of things, or are we moving on to the gaming side of things?
Speaking of cancellation.
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, there is a kind of segue, and I think that the SAG-AFTRA union's just extended strike authorization to video game studios as well, so that can be a segue of a kind. Yeah, that could be interesting to see how much that causes trouble.
I mean, that was, I don't know about anybody else, but I kind of expected that because their failure to get any movement out of the movie studios is based in part because the movie studios aren't making any damn money. However, gaming companies seem to be raking it in, and so if you're going to apply pressure, you go to those that have the ability to shovel some more money at you, and then try and play one side off of the other.
You do, and well, in a way, it's hard to say exactly how much impact it has in terms of how much it causes a delay, because theoretically, obviously, depending on the game, SAG-AFTRA will cover principally voice actors. So there's still a huge amount of work you can get on with. It's just that you won't be able to cast or record lines with people that you've already cast. So that very much depends, I think, in what stage of development the game is in, because you can do scratch audio all the time. You can use people who already work there to do scratch audio. You can use non-unionized foreign staff to do audio. There's a number of ways around that. So it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact that has generally, and especially given that I don't know that there are any major gaming releases out now, scheduled now for a while. We've had sort of this big surge of quite important stuff this year in particular. It's been quite a good year. You've got Baldur's Gate 3, you've got Starfield, which we're going to come on to in a moment. There's been a number of others as well. And I don't know that there was anything scheduled for sort of the first 6 to 8 months of next year. So whether or not it causes a huge amount of trouble will be open to question, I guess. But
yeah, I don't know that it will cause a large amount of trouble with the gaming companies per se. There's kind of a two-headed option with this. Let's go after the game companies. So one is that they're like, we got money, so who cares? We can toss it at it because voice acting is a rounding error in our total expenses. Then the flip side is, unlike the movie studios, you do not have union work at all of the levels of gaming companies. And so it's much easier for them to go, nah, bro, we good, bye. We'll just have non-union voice actors in the future to avoid that, which would really cause some issues for SAG-AFTRA.
It would. And I guess, well, in a way that's gaming studios are not quite as consolidated, is my experience anyway, as big movie studios are. There are more independent publishers in gaming than there are independent publishers in film who can actually get their product to a mass audience. But some of the bigger studios do have basically analogous relationships with unions as the big film studios do. So again, it depends on state, depends on company, but a lot of them will be put out of kilter, I think, maybe by the strike, and temporarily at least. But it depends, on the stage of development, and it also depends on the studio. So there are more factors in play maybe with games than there are with movie studios. But
yeah, I don't think you have the tie-in. So game producers are really doing different jobs than producers in movies, and so I don't know that I'm not sure about the membership of unions in that, but I'm not sure there's much overlap. You certainly don't have directors in the same way unless you use a member of the Directors Guild from Hollywood in your movie, like they did with Guillermo del Toro. So the thing about the movie studios is, if the writers go, then you have SAG go, then you have all these others that are all vested interest, and they have within their union contracts with the studios, if you hire non-union writers, then the rest of the unions go, no, we're not working on that movie. The gaming companies have no such writers going at multiple levels of their industry. So if you just have voice actors go, try and muscle them out, and the gaming companies are annoyed enough about it, they'll just tell them to go pound sand. Now that doesn't necessarily apply with Sony games, because they have relationships they have to maintain with their movie studios and all that. But there's a lot of gaming companies that'll just show them the door.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I'm fairly happy though, because I'm not unionized and I'm not an American, so more work for me. That will be good. If I start turning up in more games more often, or more often than I was expecting to, it's because the strike's been bad for the Americans, but it's quite good for the foreign workers. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It was a shame we don't have Vex here, because I know Vex keeps in touch with gaming probably more than anyone else. I don't know. Are there any big releases that are impending that people are aware of that could be delayed by this? I'm not aware of any.
I'm not a gamer, so no.
I think you're probably going to affect things that are more like 6 months to a year out, because the integration of voice acting into the game engine and story and all that is not we do it at the last minute. It's also not something we do at the very beginning. So it's going to be in the last year of production that you're going to start doing those integrations.
I'm
back.
Oh, you're back. Hello.
I messed up bad. I have a stream tonight, and I have to, how Streamlabs, okay, I made my stream and I forgot to link Streamlabs, and then there's no way for me to invite people, so I had to delete the entire thing and do it again, and I panicked. How do you, if you create a stream on YouTube, can you invite people if it's not on StreamYard?
YouTube, I don't think. Well, YouTube doesn't host the stream, so if StreamYard
is OBS, yeah.
OBS, because it's been ages. I used to, like a year or so ago, I used to do it with the combination of Streamlabs and Discord. But again, Streamlabs is just and then but on the YouTube end, as far as I know, YouTube just hosts it receives the stream from the third party, so invites go out on StreamYards and or Streamlabs. But
I fixed it.
Good-o. Well done. It's not a problem here because we just spam links, but I think at some point in the future we might try and move off of StreamYards just because it's slightly limiting. Also slightly samey. Everyone uses this thing now.
It's boring.
It's boring. The aesthetic is boring. You can't really do a lot of creative things with it. I don't know. It's kind of boring.
Just go raw OBS and write your own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it raw.
Give me the meat. Give it to me raw.
But I guess
Starfield conversations.
That is where we're heading on to, because we're talking about the impact of because I think SAG-AFTRA has just extended the strike to gaming. So whether there's anything coming up that might impact or affect. But my impression was that most of the big releases are currently out now already, and it's going to be a while before the next set is due.
Gaming takes forever. It takes like twice as long to make a game than it does a film. So I feel like all that stuff there's no way for anyone to know what's going to be affected at this point.
No, I know. I mean, I'm working on one at the moment that I think has been in development for about 8 years. So it takes a while to get these things up and running.
Someone said Star Wars Outlaws is coming out next year. That's probably not going to be stopped. I assume they have everything done with that.
I've completely forgotten about that one. Yeah.
Is that just the cowboy game? I hope it's just a cowboy game.
I believe the premise is that you are basically kind of space cowboy, space bounty hunter type person.
Amen.
Going around the galaxy.
Amen.
From what I remember, the trailer looked okay.
I didn't see the trailer. I just saw the poster, and then people complained because it was a woman, and I was like, okay.
So,
I did
so
see
it's,
that.
it's essentially
Can I-
what the Mandalorian promised to be, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
If
looked
it's what the
okay.
Mandalorian promised to be, it might be quite good. But if it's what the Mandalorian turned out to be, it will not be very
It'd
good
be
at all.
shit.
Platoon, do you have a team for your game?
No, I'm just a writer on Judas for Ken Levine.
Okay.
So
was
I'm
gonna
part
say-
of a team.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of my favorite games ever is called The Witness. It's a puzzle game. It's really, really good. The guy who did Braid, indie game developer, it took him 7 years by himself to make it. It's really game developing is so hard. It's depressing. The Astroneer developed. There's a really good documentary about this game called Astroneer, and it's a very depressing documentary because somebody ends up, self-deleting during the making of it because it's so depressing and
In
not very-
Minecraft. In
Minecraft and but it's like there's not a lot of, you only get the satisfaction of your product at the very when you release it, and there's nothing throughout the entire process of making it that's like nobody knows what you're doing. You're all alone. It's yeah.
Yeah, that's more for the indie side, but
Yeah.
The thing about like programming in general and games in particular, you do a ton of work where it's all ugly and mess, and okay, this little thing works, but purely like from a text interface standpoint or whatever. And so I always joke, it's ugly, it's beautiful, ship. And so it really only comes together at kind of the last minute, which sadly is why a lot of games ship like shit, because they put hard shipping dates on them and not, when it's done it ships.
Well, you can bypass that by giving it the early access label. It's a very easy. That's what Baldur's Gate 3 did. Baldur's Gate 3
live service and then never bothered to actually get it to functional status.
Baldur's Gate 3 was in early access for 3 years, and then they if it was released like that, they would have gotten terrible reviews. But because it had that label, suddenly when it's finally finished, they're like, okay, we're going to release it now. And then it's like, oh, it's a masterpiece. How did they do it? It's like, well, it was in early access for so long.
Well, and I think
sense.
it was like what 3 or 4 years before they opened it up for early access. I mean, again, there is a tremendous amount of time spent just getting the functional engine up, and then basic physics and all that before you can ever start adding assets and give any kind of gameplay.
Early access is the sensible way to go about it, because I think the problem at the moment is you have this perverse incentive structure where in the back of a lot of people's minds is, well, at least we can just patch it. If it's broken on launch, we can fix it pretty quickly. And there's not the same inclination anymore to say, well, look, it has to go out in one form. The final form is the final form. We can't change it after that. Like back in the old cartridge days, if the N64 shipped something which was broken, it was fucked. You can't just download an update which fixes all the stuff a year later. Like, it's not No Man's Sky. It's Mario 64. Whereas early access at least gives you the opportunity to actually iron out a lot of these bugs while people are playing it, and they know they're playing it in early access, so it's kind of baked into the cake that it's not going to be properly perfect just yet. It's a good way of bug fixing and all the rest of that. But the ideal situation, of course, is that you actually release games properly completed and you give them realistic release dates that allow them to be properly finished, not like Lord of Ring Gollum, for example.
No, didn't the government pay for that game?
The German government did
for it.
subsidize the creation of Lord of Ring Gollum. It's a good example of why the government doesn't work ever, even if it's subsidizing video games. They turn out like shit.
Game.
And also a demonstration that Germans continue to commit war crimes against the rest of the world.
I think early access. I think you're right that the ideal thing is to release a game finished, not in early access, because personally, I've had about maybe 50% of my early access experiences have been pretty bad. I don't want to play a game in early access. I'd rather not, to be honest. I just want, because I don't want to play a game and then half enjoy it and then have to play it again when it's finally out.
That's
I
think early access though is essentially
it's
you're
for
trying
developers.
You're trying to drive a certain amount of audience interest because you want it, but also you want to get feedback to start tweaking things as early as you can. And the final thing is it saves you money on having QA doing beta testing because you're just having volunteers do it instead.
Well, you can also raise money too. Baldur's Gate was $60 in early access,
right?
So it helps you finish. I mean, it's pretty much for developers to really feel more comfortable. As a gamer, personally, I don't really like early access. I wish I didn't have to play early access games, but some of them are so cool that it's just like, okay, I'll get it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Man.
lot of FOMO that comes with that,
Yeah.
and then I joke that life is a lot like the old YouTube comments where, whenever you put something up, the first thing that was up there was somebody yelling "burst," and that drives a lot of people that are trying to get into early access or buying special editions so that they can play Starfield a week before everybody else. Right? It's that impulse to be first.
Which I'm fine with as long as it is an offline single player experience. I think that becomes irritating
Yeah,
to the
if it's like
extreme when it becomes
multiplayer,
online
MMO,
multiplayer.
especially
Yeah.
MMO.
It's
Or
the same
live
with loot
service where it's
boxes.
very clearly a single player, yet we insist on you playing online so that we can ship whatever the hell,
Yeah.
and then make sure that we put in as many microtransactions and bullshit as we can.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
mean, when
thing
it comes
that-
to online only games or online included games, early access plus loot boxes, which effectively is just play to win. That's when it becomes more. Yeah, you are gamifying the audience at that point. You're basically
Right.
saying how this is a way we can extract the most money from people's want to be the best at the thing we're doing, as opposed to something like I think Starfield's just offline only, isn't it? I think so. It's a bit different in that situation that you're not going to be impacting anyone else. You can be the first to play Starfield if you want to, but you're not going to impact anybody else's playing experience by doing that. I don't mind early access in that sense. It's also, yeah, as you say, it's also a way of getting paid to do QA as opposed to paying to do QA, which is not a bad thing. Though QA will often take place before early access in some limited ways. But yeah, I mean, on Starfield then, it's in early access now. Has anyone played it yet?
Yeah, I'm like 30 hours in.
What are you thinking so far?
I'm on the Xbox. It's running really well. I haven't had any crashes. I had a couple enemies disappear when I'm trying to kill them, like maybe 3, and then a couple waypoint errors where I'm trying to navigate. Other than that, it's incredibly smooth. It's actually pretty well polished. And in comparison, Cyberpunk crashed to the menu for me 52 times in one playthrough on the PlayStation 5.
I mean, that's
Bro.
efficient. You didn't waste
That's-
any time playing and then lose
Dude.
progress.
Every 30 minutes it would crash, and then I would boot it up again because the PS5 is such a very fast load times. It would take me 10 seconds to get back into my game. It didn't really even bother me, but the fact that I'm telling you, 52 crashes on the PS, I counted all of them, and it was unacceptable. But this game has none of that, in my opinion. I haven't seen any of that stuff.
Sony were very salty about that. It took a long time for that to go back on the
I
PlayStation
know.
Store. And even then, because I think I got it after it went back on the PlayStation Store. So that was that almost a year between it being taken off and eventually going back on? It was a number of
Yeah.
months, I think.
Long time.
And even then, when I got it, there was a couple of occasions the menu gets stuck. I'm like, well, it's not frozen, but I can't click anything. So you go online. It's like, oh no, what you have to do is you have to turn off your console's Wi-Fi. That will fix the menu problem. It's like, okay, fair enough. Don't need the Wi-Fi on anyway. So in we go. For the most part, it was all right after that. There were a couple of occasions. One of the which is the clan that you joined with? What's her name in it? Panam clan.
I love her
the-
side quest.
The hackers.
Yeah.
The
I don't know.
No, the hackers was Julie's one, I think.
I
The,
forget.
the
Edgerunners.
Panam. The
Wait,
Panam
wait,
one,
there's
anyway-
actually a group called the Hackers.
Oh no, well, no, it's a hacking
Okay.
subplot. I can't remember what
Okay.
the group is. I want to call them the Desperados, but I don't think it's that. Avocados,
Yes.
Aldecados, one of those.
The
But
hacking.
when you go
of-
back, when you first go back to their
Aldecado.
Aldecado, that's the one. When you first go back to their thing, even when I was playing it like months after the problems were supposed to have been solved, all of the buildings and structures disappeared. So there were people just sitting way up in the sky, unreachable, which was kind of annoying. But the rest of the game seemed to be working from that point onwards.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching some of the
Yep.
the early YouTube videos of Cyberpunk, soiling itself all over everything because
Cars falling through the ground.
Yeah.
the best part though was explained
Spaghetti
because
people.
my wife
Yeah.
is not technically inclined at all. So she would look at me, she would like, what the hell is this? And so I would explain how the engine is doing this and why these things are happening. And you could see, them the optimizations that didn't happen, but they tried, like progressive loading in of assets, but they're getting view distances wrong or line of sight. And so all of a sudden there's no building. You could actually kind of watch it grind along trying to do what it was supposed to do, just not very well.
But sometimes I don't mind bugs per se. Sometimes bugs, if they don't really impact gameplay too much, actually make the thing way more funny and memorable. I remember Fallout 3. The Doctor, who's played by the guy from Battlestar Galactica, when you first meet him, and when my friend and I were playing it, like his head would just be on a permanent 360 rotation, which was quite funny. Then he would walk up invisible stairs and then come out the ceiling. That was good. There's a lot of funny bugs in that game, but that kind of improved the gameplay experience. Whereas I think with Cyberpunk and things like that, not so
when the
much.
fundamental mechanics are broken, you have a problem. Yeah.
Look, Starfield has a polarizing. Some people think it's boring. Some people don't. Some people don't like Bethesda games. Period. I'm not here to. I don't want to tell anybody what kind of game they should be playing for fun. It's like I think Fallout's kind of boring, but I still like it, and I don't know. I don't think the controversy is more interesting. I think.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of. We're going to obviously come on to talk about that at some point. I was kind of more interested to get the nitty gritty, sort of the details of the game first, just because I agree the controversy is probably more interesting, but I don't think that that's healthy. I think it's really it's annoying that this major new game title comes out and all everyone is talking about is shouting about things which they may be merit or may not be merit. But the point is that there are other things to be talking about the game. That's a
good point. The game has problems, and it's great when nerds come together and like, oh, this game sucks. No, it's great, and then they have because feedback for even the developers want people to kind of argue about that stuff. So it's like, is it too boring? Do you care about going into space or not landing? Is it okay that it's a loading screen? Like all that stuff is also I don't have a problem with most of it, but some people do.
I mean, I think the most shocking thing is that Bethesda shipped something that didn't just smear PCs all over itself as soon as you loaded it up.
Yeah.
Or insist on microtransactions and loot boxes all over everything.
Yeah, the one thing I don't see a lot of people talking about is that people are comparing it to No Man's Sky, and they're like, why can't it do this, this, and this? Because No Man's Sky.
Yeah, that's just weird.
I think people
they're forgetting what No Man's Sky was like when it shipped.
Yeah.
Well, even besides that, I think people are, I don't know, maybe they just don't understand how games are developed, because why would I want Bethesda to take time away from their game development and their RPG mechanics and their questing to spend a lot of time and effort allowing me to leave and enter a planet's atmosphere? To me, that is like I don't care about any of that. I want a good quest line and I want good dialogue. I don't want them to delay the game another year just to add, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
So it's like, why are we criticizing a game for the things it doesn't do at all? It's like, that doesn't make sense. It's like, I watched Oppenheimer, it didn't have action, therefore bad movie. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it's the same with games. It doesn't have to have every game mechanic that you want. It just has to do the game mechanics it has, and it has to do them well.
I guess it depends, though. That's partly the sales prospectus, though. So if the game comes out and it promises to do X, Y, and Z, and it in fact does A, B, and C, then it's fair to say, well, this is not the thing I was promised.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with something like Starfield, when it's from Bethesda, when it's got such a story lineage in terms of the past games from that studio, you expect certain things from it. It's probably fair to hold it against maybe the standards that prior games have set. Is the story any good, for example? Does it have enough action to warrant interest in that aspect of the role playing? Is the open world stuff truly open world? Is there enough content to fill the open world, which always seems to me to be a big problem with a lot of open world games, is that you can explore, but what's the point? I don't know how Starfield's doing so far with that, but I've not played the early access. Is there enough to keep you kind of interested in stuff to do and plot to follow?
The exploration is interesting because there's NPCs on like everywhere, and they all have quest things to do, and in even the most minor insignificant quests that you could just miss are actually really fun. I think so it benefits you to I'm sorry I'm eating actually. It benefits you to explore so that you can and talk to people, so that you'll get quests like a really cool bounty hunting quest that you otherwise, if you didn't go into this tavern, you never would have found it. And there's a lot of that. It's so many quests. It's actually kind of shocking.
I think that there's certainly arguments to be made for if I'm leaving a planet and going into space, and it's simply a loading screen or something and not the transition. When you're talking about a space exploration RPG, it seems to me you're breaking immersion then that's kind of a fundamental
Yeah.
flaw, right? The one thing you don't want to do is, you know, Andrew's correct. You want to limit the the scope to the things that you can do well, but immersion is the thing that you absolutely have to focus on if you're trying to do a
Right.
role-playing game. And if you fumble that because bro, I didn't have time, well, then you need to go take more time to at least get immersion right.
Yeah. Yeah, the space, the menu navigation bothers some people. Would I like to have more immersion like that? Yeah, I'm just more interested in the questing and the skill trees and my companions and things like that. I'm glad they spent time making the game polished. Like, that's one thing they didn't lie about. And he said it's going to be their most polished game ever at launch, and it is. And he also didn't lie about the leaving and entering atmospheres. They talked about that was not going to be a feature a long time ago. They did lie about exploring the planet. Apparently there's barriers.
Oh, well, unusual.
I didn't come across any, but I guess there is.
See, I don't intrinsically mind those. Again, that's another classic case of this is the problem with the sales pitch. If you tell people it's open world, people do expect it to be open world and not have hidden walls everywhere. Right. But I don't mind. In fact, in many ways, I prefer games with hidden walls and barriers. Ideally, they're so well hidden you don't spot that they are barriers. Right. Because otherwise, you will fill. There's a huge amount of empty space, an immense amount of resource that goes into creating things that actually don't really serve any kind of purpose, except that you can walk through them. And what is really the point in that?
Handcrafted games, right? With environmental designers and things, right?
Well,
this is procedural.
No, I mean you can still procedurally generate those. If you have out of bounds, then you have to create geography or obstacles that the character inherently could not overcome with the tools that they have.
Well, Skyrim and Skyrim and Fallout have very elaborate handcrafted maps. It's all I think people were expecting Skyrim in space, and then every planet is like a Skyrim map or something, and it's just. I don't think we have the technology to even do that. It would be tough to do that with one planet, let alone, 50 or 1,000. I think we're not there yet. There's a reason why only a handful of developers are even doing space, immersive space games right now. Barely anyone. I don't think I don't know. The tech isn't quite there.
No, I think one of the reasons they don't do it is because the market isn't there. Because why not just shit out another Call of Duty or Battlefield or Madden or FIFA every year, even though you're using the same game engine.
There is also the cost aspect of that, which is that the bigger your map, the more you have to fill. The more you have to fill, the more you have to employ people to fill it. And by fill, I don't just mean fill with landscape or fill with building. I also mean fill with content, because otherwise that is just wasted space. So, I think in a way, No Man's Sky has that issue. No Man's Sky has an immense amount of exploration. Everything you land on is huge. Yeah, but how much are you really doing on your long quests from one point to another?
The questing in No Man's Sky kind of sucks.
It does.
I don't really like it. There's 3 different types of quests. And there's the main story, which is just kind of boring. It's just text being thrown at you, and you're like, I must care about this random guy. And then side quests are just meh. The more intriguing part about No Man's Sky is just the spaceships. Can I get a good
base building?
Can I get a cool spaceship with a cool base? And then you quit the game. I think if Starfield has better questing, I'll probably enjoy it once I get my hands on it.
Much better. Also, it has fantastic voice acting. It kind of Baldur's Gate, set the bar really high with that, but Starfield is doing. I'm impressed by it. Very good voice acting and dialogue, and decision making and stuff like that.
Can you fly into a black hole?
No, a lot of Pierce actually flew from the moon to what is it, Pluto or something in 7 hours on stream, and she did it. You actually can do it.
I'm doing it.
But what happened is she got there and she just phased through the planet. She could, you can't. There's no landing screen, and you have to do the load. You have to load your landing screen, which doesn't bother me. It takes 6 seconds to load. And
okay, well,
there's a reason.
Of, ideally, what you do is you have to bake in when you're doing any kind of level design or game design. You have to bake in that players do some really strange shit.
Yep.
And you want to minimize the chances of that strange shit causing problems. So like you might not expect people to spend 7 hours flying from place to place, but you
Yeah.
probably should expect some people to do that and at least account for that in some way rather than having them effectively break immersion in order to fix the thing that they shouldn't really have done. Like there are ways to stop them doing that, which probably would have made for a better experience.
Yeah, I just don't know the tech behind it because we would have to talk to a game dev, but like their whole system might have to be completely. They might have to like change it or their engine because loading and landing on a planet, going in and out of the atmosphere freely. I don't know how No Man's Sky does it, but I'm assuming it's a totally different engine. So maybe that's why they had limitations.
No Man's Sky, the way No Man's Sky works from how I played it and like seeing frame skips, just assuming from frame skips. Once you fly close enough to atmosphere, it completely loads a different section seamlessly. It pops in the planet. And everything around it, and then you can go fly, and vice versa for leaving. You go up, and then like there's a frame skip, and then like a bunch of asteroids appear because you're in the space biome, I guess.
It's still immersive, and it feels good, especially in VR. I got sick. I actually almost threw up.
Wait, Starfield's in VR?
No Man's Sky.
Oh, okay.
It should, but it might be at some point. But No Man's Sky is
you got me hyped there.
Insane in VR. I was like upside down trying to spin my ship around, and I got sick. I had to take my mask off.
I want to play it in VR. I have a VR headset. I just don't have time to do anything with it. So
you can cheat with something like No Man's Sky because it's been so long since I played it. But like if you're transitioning from planet surface to space, for example, you can hide effectively a loading screen in Nebula or like Cloud or anything which is not loading heavily.
That's what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then though, the fact that it has to it loads persistently means that that's kind of one of the reasons that everything in it does feel really empty. Is that you can't do that if every planet you're on is as fully realized and completely populated as really you would want it to be for any kind of narrative-driven game. Obviously, the more stuff you have to load during a scene transition, the heavier the load on the game is going to be, and I don't think the technology is there to hide that. So in a way, that's the problem that the Switch has, say, with Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Which is that, though I think they do a pretty good job of making the worlds themselves romantic, unless you're the kind of person who's happy spending hours on their own in a pretty lonely world, which is not very well populated, then it's not going to hold your interest. For all it's beautiful, it's not, and this is my experience of it anyway, because I really enjoy playing both those games. I don't think I will ever finish either of them, just because there's only so long I can sit there on my own saying, hey, look, this looks pretty. I like the music here. The art style's good. And I think, well, okay, but I also want some sense of direction or people to care about. And they're not really enough of those in there because the Switch doesn't have the technology to actually populate a world of the size of Breath of the Wild, for example.
Well, can I ask you what you think of sci-fi aesthetics? Somebody in the chat was like, Lofty, what do you, as a barometer, they're trying to gauge my opinions, I guess. What do you think of Fallout 4? I like Fallout 4. It's okay. What I'm trying to say is, I think post-apocalyptic sci-fi is my least favorite genre. I prefer space sci-fi and cyberpunk. I think post-apocalyptic like aesthetics are really boring, and I think the wasteland to me is boring, and there's nothing in between point A and B. I love space science fiction. It's my favorite. Like Alien's my favorite horror movie. Dead Space is a fantastic game. Like that's just what I prefer. So I love Starfield more than Fallout. That's just, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Starfield also has this like NASA punk type.
Punk. Yeah, it's
like
cool.
I like the design of it with the spaceships and the character design. I like that part of it. Post-apocalyptic design can be very uninspired a lot of the time. And it's just like huge stretches of landscape without people. Yeah. It also can be just like, it's just boring walking around seeing nobody. Like a lot of creature come by, or just have like some Joe Schmo show up.
I think if you have a problem with large landscapes as nobody, you should really hate sci-fi that's in space, because there's a whole lot of emptiness there.
It's a little different though, because the feeling of being in space is different than being stuck on a wasteland. It's just I just have when I'm playing it, I totally feel like a different vibe. I don't know. I can't explain it.
But a lot of that is a narrative design as opposed to a level design problem. So Fallout 3 is probably the last one I played. But I still kind of enjoyed it. Well, actually, I didn't even play much of it. I watched my friend play it most of it, but it solves a lot of that problem by narrative design. So there is always somewhere to go, and when you get there, it is worth the distance you travel to get there. There's enough combat in the interim that makes it kind of a trial and a challenge to do that. That's the challenge part of the game. But there's always a reason to go somewhere. The plot is very directly taking you from point A to point B. Getting from point A to point B is itself a challenge, but there's a payoff to getting to point B, which a lot of generic open world games don't really master so well. So like, I played Star Wars Galaxies back when I was like 10, I think it was, before that closed.
That was an MMO, right?
It was the MMO. It had huge worlds, massive worlds, and fuck all on any of them. Everyone sat in Mos Espa on Tatooine.
Bro.
And there were like 10 other planets, which were massive for the time. You could walk everywhere. You could walk up the side of cliffs. There's no hidden walls. But why are you doing any of that?
That's why the one Middle Earth, what the heck is that called? Lord of the Rings Online is probably the best MMO I've ever played. It's everywhere. It's populated. The whole Middle Earth is populated. And it's just insane. Also, the Old Republic is really good. But the Lord of the Rings one is just like the whole map feels like I'm in Middle Earth. You could play it now. It's still really immersive. Like I highly recommend that game. But yeah.
I never got into I thought for a while, but I was too poor at the time, so I never tried to play it. But maybe I will. Maybe I will. But they have the advantage, I guess, of immense amounts of stuff to draw on, but also a huge development time, and the game's been around for ages, and so they've added loads of stuff to it. I think with something like Star Wars Galaxies, because it was such an early time in MMOs as well, they kind of assumed that this thing would be immensely popular, and so all these empty spaces would be populated by people, actual people, as opposed to NPCs.
Yeah.
And so they didn't ever consider that actually they would destroy their own game and no one would play it anymore. And so then you have these massive, well-designed worlds, which there's no point to doing any of that. And then occasionally you would find this one guy who says, hey, I have a quest for you. Go over there. And then you go over there and he just doesn't load again. So it's like,
well done.
That works well. Real good payoff to that quest. The character just didn't show up to give me my reward. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like, I think that there's a huge amount of import, I think, in getting the right sized world. And so this is one of the things I'm interested in about Starfield, is that for all the exploration options there are, is there enough story content and narrative content and other stuff to actually make it worth going from place to place, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I haven't played enough yet and been everywhere, but the cities are very big. There's a ton of things to do in them. Like I said, most random NPCs, a lot of them have random quests. When you land on a planet, and the main thing to do on planets is there's two things. You can land on designated like outposts or facilities or caves, and you can explore them. That's content technically, and that's on every planet. But there's other than that, you just survey the planet. So you scan the wildlife like No Man's Sky, and then you can sell the surveys for a lot of money. Other than that, and then you can build an outpost, but there's nothing to do on almost any of the planets besides that. Those three things.
How's the base building in the game? Have you built a base
I
yet?
haven't. It's the game is. I'm telling you guys, this game is very deep. I'm doing research right now. I'm trying to craft things. I have like 30 quests that I have to like work my way through. But the base building looks great. The shipbuilding apparently is amazing. I just haven't, the hijacking of ships is supposed to be fun. It's a big game.
Hijacking ships like pirates?
Yeah, you can steal anyone's ship. Then you take it back and register it and sell it. And then there's a lot to do in this game. For a vanilla game, there's quite a bit to do, I think. It just depends on if you like Bethesda games, I think. Yeah.
I do need to get a new PC. So once I do that, I'll get Starfield.
I would have got it in early access, but my PC is in the shop still, so I can't. But once it's back, I'll definitely
in the shop,
be downloading it.
Still waiting for the box.
It's in a box.
Great.
The box arrived. The box arrived on Saturday, so it's in the box now. It's a waiting pickup.
We got the box.
So in maybe a month, I'll have an actual PC that can play games again. That will be nice. I've got Baldur's Gate 3 just sitting there, untouched, because the fucking thing broke. God damn it. But no, I'm kind of. I want to see Starfield. I want to see what it's like. I think I quite like Bethesda games. I don't mind that. They've generally been quite good at well, Bethesda did do Skyrim, didn't they? Am I right about that?
Yes.
Yeah. Skyrim was good.
Yeah.
Skyrim was fun.
Yes.
Didn't mind that. Good amount of content for exploration. It didn't sort of leave you completely empty. It's one of the only quote unquote open world games that I probably have finished just because there's always something to be doing.
Oh yeah, you can spend 200 hours on one playthrough in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you always feel like you're part of a story, even when you're just sort of
Right.
generically exploring, or side quests still feel like they're actually mainline content as opposed to just, hey, go here, scan the thing, sell it. And
Yeah. I've been hearing that the faction, like Skyrim has factions. There's like the Thieves Guild and things like that. But in this game, there's like 3 or 4 different factions. I'm hearing they're fantastic. Like lengthy side quest missions, and I haven't done many of them yet. But it's also in this game. You can that's another big part of the game is the factions.
How
You
good
can
is
have-
the how good's the gunplay? Like
It's
the
pretty
combat?
simple. It's pretty
Okay.
simple. I like it because it lets you specialize in like a specific kind of gun, like kinetic, laser, melee,
Okay.
and you can have multiple playthroughs, and you'll be really powerful. I'm doing lasers because I made Bulma from Dragon Ball Z. So I'm doing lasers, and I had to pick she her pronouns. Oh my gosh, kill me. But
we'll come to that in a second.
but I'm specializing in lasers, and I'm doing a lot of damage. It's really fun. There's a lot of good weapons. I don't know. There's too much to talk about. It's so good.
It's okay. That's maybe more interested in checking it out than less. Just an answer to this chat. No, I never finished Elden Ring. I really like Elden Ring, but I played it completely wrong and went in the entire wrong direction for my entire first playthrough and sunk many hours into going into late game areas with a low spec character. So yeah, I'm not necessarily very good at open world games. Maybe that's the problem. But I know, because I know, Lofty, we haven't got you for too much longer, so we might as well go on to the other aspect of Starfield, which I guess everyone is talking about, which is the pronoun stuff and the reaction to the pronoun stuff. I know there's been a couple of other people who've said similar things, as is the only video I've seen. So I don't know what anybody else has said. I've addressed this one on Twitter, and I know a lot of other people have lots of things to say about it. So for context, for anyone who is living under a rock and isn't familiar with what's been said, so there's a clip of Az doing the rounds where he gets quite angry because on the character creation screen, you are made to choose pronouns, and those pronouns include gender non-binary stuff. And he got quite annoyed about that because his argument is that, I want to be immersed in the world and I want to like explore all the things the game's actually offering me, and I'm being taken out of this experience when the game reminds me of real world political discourse. Again, I have my opinions on this. They're on Twitter if you want to fast forward to those, but I think it would be fun to have other people sort of give their reactions first. So I don't know who wants to kick off with like what their evaluation of this is. A, is it an issue? And B, how much of an issue? And C, was Az right to react the way he reacted? I guess is the basic structure of the question. I don't know who wants to go first on this one, but whoever speaks first can go.
Well, there's the other people that this game's not out yet till tomorrow, so that's why not many people have played it and are talking about it. So Az took the brunt of it, and Dan Vask, I think, was the other one. Dan Vask, and Nina Infinity. I don't have a problem with what they did, and I think people are overreacting, and it's a very nuanced conversation. I don't really mind if somebody disagrees with me and doesn't play the game or anything. I just think I think it's strange that, like, my big thing is I think it's strange that this game is being, and I even talked to Razorfist about this, and he thinks that it's, I kind of agree with him. He thinks that Starfield is a AAA title. Baldur's Gate is a little less popular, much more woke. So is Hogwarts Legacy. So is a couple other, Cyberpunk is more woke. If we're talking about being woke, and the point is, none of those games really had a massive backlash like this, and people seem to have even enjoyed a lot of those games and didn't quite mind the slippery slopes or whatever you want to call it, of like ideological creep and things. I think this one's just kind of being blown out of proportion a little. That's just my take, but we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Andrew,
you.
Me, Bagface, and Uninspired talked about it last night on Slight Tomfoolery, and then Vex was in the chat, so we invited her on because she was talking about it on Twitter, and I think we all came to the conclusion that, like, this is a very childish reaction to it, and it's like, come on, can we talk about the game? I do think it's very it's weirdly hypocritical to say that this is where you draw the line when you have a game, Hogwarts Legacy, that forces you to use they them pronouns, and then you have Baldur's Gate, which not only lets you make a woman with a penis, but also you
Sex
can
with
have
animals.
sex with animals. But no, this is the line that we draw, guys. This is it. This is the hill we die
It's
on.
funny that people are like, I'm done with Starfield. I'm refunding. I'm gonna go back to Baldur's Gate. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, you're gonna
Wait,
go
did-
back.
did-
All right, furry.
Did we
Okay.
explain? Wait, Platoon. Did you explain the pronoun thing to your chat? I don't remember if we even talked about like the actual thing. Are people aware of? Because basically the character creation. The problem is the character creation has pronouns. That's what everybody's upset about. I don't know if we even mentioned that. I just wanted to bring it up.
Oh yeah, no. I think I sort of trailed that at the beginning. So yeah, you were given 3 options as I understand it. So you got like he, him, she, her, and they, them.
They, them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it
so
defaults to the body type you choose, right?
It does.
So it's like if you choose a male-looking body, it will give you the he, him pronouns, which is probably what you're gonna want.
Yeah, and you can go into the options and change that. So the argument for it is that it's effectively expanding player choice, right? So players get the ability to choose whichever thing that better represents them. And I hear what has been said so far about there are other games. Elden Ring does the cop-out thing of type A, type B body types, for example, which I always thought at the time that annoyed me slightly about Elden Ring, and I don't find this particular thing ever so annoying, but I understand why people do. I think is the difference.
I think there's a big misunderstanding. People think that your pronouns in this game are part of your character, and they're not. You know what happens when you pick a pronoun and you start the game? The pronouns disappear, and they are the pronouns are only there so the NPCs know what to call you. They're not even pronouns. It's like what do you want the game? How do you want the game to refer to you as?
Yeah, which is that's the player freedom argument. So I'm obviously Az isn't here, so I'll do what I think he was getting at, and this is the point I was making in the Twitter thread as well, which is that the problem with the player freedom argument, for example, is that like what the devs choose to include as player freedom is indicative of real world priorities and a real world sense of what matters. So including they, them pronouns as player freedom, it is, after a fashion, player freedom. But what you choose to make player freedom and not player freedom is a reflection of a real world paradigm, right? So the fact that they, them pronouns are just kind of assumed by game developers and by large parts of the audience as being just a natural extension of player freedom is in fact an extension of real world political gender ideology, which is like, it seems normal to a huge number of people that they them is included as an option just because that's kind of the mission creep of the ideology that's seeped in. Most people think it's impolite even to object to that kind of thing, whereas in fact if you take even a 10-year view of general political discourse, the prevalence of gender ideology, even as expressed quite mundanely in the form of pronoun choice, is actually quite a radical change from what used to be. Like you should, at least according to a large number of people, be able to encompass the entirety of the human experience by he, him, or she, her pronouns. So when a game developer includes they, them pronouns, what they're effectively doing, though they don't really, I don't think they realize it themselves. I don't think the game devs of Starfield sat there thinking, let's push gender ideology. But what they have done is to say, well, this is a perfectly legitimate expression of gender ideology to court. And that's what people like us are now starting to react against in a way that maybe if it had happened 10 years ago, we wouldn't now be sitting here saying, yes, they, them pronouns are even a subject of discussion because they wouldn't have come up.
You're right.
People are asking for the clone context because there's a character who's it's a woman, it's a female character who is a clone of a male, and I would just like to say that has happened, that has existed in fiction for a while, hasn't it? Like X-32 or wait, is it X-32? 23.
Yep.
Like in one of the best superhero movies ever, Logan.
Yeah,
is that movie woke now?
The comic
There's
book,
a weird old Robert Heinlein book where the protagonist, or no, not the protagonist, one of the characters in there is the clone of himself in a female body, which his old male body impregnated. Like, there's weird shit in science fiction, okay? And like, not all the weird shit in science fiction is woke. So I think, but it's helpful probably to parcel that out from, in a way, I think like that aspect, the clone woman who is a clone of a guy, in a way, I don't think is the most useful point to talk about. I think the more interesting one is why people are getting so annoyed about the pronouns thing. And I personally can understand why they are getting annoyed about that. I don't really prioritize that. So Elden Ring comes out, type A, type B kind of is irritating, but I will move on. But it's not to say that because I can move on from it, it's not important, or that maybe there mightn't be some use in the backlash we're seeing. So I think one of the ways to understand what's happening at the moment is it's a kind of an overt reaction to what did happen over Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy had a huge campaign to cancel it from the other side of that. That campaign and that campaigning strategy until Hogwarts Legacy was incredibly successful in capturing games magazines, games news websites, and gaming studios themselves. And there wasn't a huge amount of pushback against that from people. We'll bracket term and call it the right, because it does tend to map left-right roles. So there wasn't enough pushback on that. And that's why gaming has now been reduced to the point where there is a huge amount of objective and overt political context in many games. Starfield has been chosen as an example, and Starfield is the one that now there is a reaction against. Whether it's the right one to have that reaction against is a question. I don't necessarily think that it is, but I do understand and kind of agree that there should be some sort of reaction to it.
I wanted to say that there's the Bethesda. It's important to think what they were. You actually kind of said this. You don't think they were doing ideology on purpose or trying to, like, if the game's rated M, they're not going after kids. This is what I think happened is there's like 1 million or something estimated non-binary people in this country, and a lot of them are Zoomers, and a lot of them play video games, and a lot of them use they them pronouns. I think it's just Bethesda trying to appeal to as many people as possible. And if that's something you disagree with, that's fine. Personally, I understand why they did it. And I have trans friends. I have people that use those pronouns. I personally try to call them by their name personally. It just kind of bothers me. But I'm not gonna scream into a camera about it, and I'm really having fun with the game, and I'm kind of selfish, and I just like to enjoy my life and play things that I want to play, especially if they're good. If that makes me a consumer, I don't really care. I'm not consuming bad content. It's a good game. Like, there's so many different people are saying that I'm a woke leftist for playing the game and financing the game, and it's getting out of control, man. It's just too much.
I think there's a few things. One is they're not reacting to as in good faith. He's only posted like 20 hours of playing the game, right. I think, thus far, and
this is the one clip that's doing the rounds for some reason. Like, it's not.
Newsweek is slow. We know people gotta hate on something, so it's either you hate on Bethesda and the game, or you hate on Az. That's pretty much how it goes now.
Well, I think the other thing is I understand why Az is saying what he's saying and why he's reacting the way it is, even if it's not necessarily something that I would agree with or do. Maybe because I haven't quite hit that mark of I've had enough, and I'm going to go full Howard Beale and announce that I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. But is this in and of itself a huge issue that everybody should lose their minds over? I'm not certain, but we're all going to evaluate it differently. However, when you are constantly being irritated with things that are very much designed to infiltrate an ideology or to put down those who disagree with it, right? Comes a point when that irritant that's the last straw, and I've lost it, and I'm gonna blow up, right? It's like being in a relationship where the thing you're arguing about is rarely the thing you're actually arguing about. It's the other 5 things that you kind of let pass that it finally hit the head.
That's different for everyone, right? Everybody has a subjective line. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with criticizing people's lines or disagreeing with someone's line. I do it all the time with people, and I mean, I'm a conservative, so I do it a lot with people on the left who are tired of, fed up with racism or whatever, and I'm just like, you're being sensitive, stop. I do it all the time, and then it's okay, because but in this situation, I'm getting a lot of shit for.
Well, I think there's so we already have like an artificial take on what Az was doing, like all he did for 20 hours was bitch about the pronoun selection.
It's artificial. He actually played the game and enjoyed
it.
And
he's still playing it, right?
There's been like dozens and dozens of hours of it, but that's the clip that's done the rounds.
Right. the other thing is, oh my God, it's he's a bigot or whatever, right? Or he's an unhinged lunatic, which may or may not be the case. I mean, I think Az might cop to being an unhinged lunatic on occasion, often for theatrical effect. If you watched him watching or playing Lord of the Ring Gollum, you would think that he would have had 8 or 9 strokes while playing the game, but most of it is just him, taking the piss out of it. But I think that Platoon is right when you look at, this really starts to show up, 2014-ish Gamergate fun,
Right.
where there's a deep divide between, gamers and publishers and the media and all of that. And you have a very specific attempt to kind of take over, game publishers and force agendas, whether that's in his Sarkeesian and feminist frequency hilarity,
Right.
Or it's in the case of picking your pronouns. Now, I don't think that the devs or whomever were trying, that they all had access to Grind and are trying to put this out, right? In fact, they might have butt fumbled that, because if you're actually going to care about pronouns, you would have put a fill in the blank, because what about the Zers,
Well,
and the 87 other pronouns that are available?
That's the point of confusion, which a lot of people think, well, why didn't they do that? Well, because the only reason the pronouns are there is because of the NPC dialogue. They're not actually pronouns. Like, you're not in your bio. They disappear when you start the game.
No, I mean, how they're referring
still...
to you is that, pronouns are
it's
a
everybody
form of
has.
grammar,
I have a pronoun. You have a pronoun. Everybody,
Right.
you can't opt out of pronouns. So you
They
have
do,
to,
but you can't opt out of
can
pronouns. But I
actually,
mean,
because
that's
you call
sort
them
of the
you.
point, right? So the pronouns don't just disappear when you've selected the pronoun, because
Right,
that
or
is the
he,
pronoun which other characters are using for you throughout the game.
Right.
So like, it's setting the default. The problem isn't so much that they are setting the default in the game. The problem is that this is the choice that's available to people to begin with. I think is probably the undergirding thing.
the they them thing. Do you think
it sounds like an incredibly niche thing to a lot of people, and I understand why it sounds like an incredibly niche thing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I do go back to the point that if you were talking to people even 15 years ago and you said that there will be a huge movement to legitimize people referring to themselves by like impersonal third person pronouns in the first person, because that's somehow a gender identity, and that gender identity now means that you can call yourself everything you want and then demand that everybody else does the same thing, and then demand that this be treated as normalcy throughout all mass media. I think that's the point at which people are starting to say, you know what, I've kind of had enough of this now, and this is not normal, and it shouldn't be treated as normal, and now we're going to start pushing back against that. And for all it sounds like a tiny niche complaint from one corner of, say, right-wing internet, well, way back before Gamergate, and I needed Sarkeesian saying, oh, the games are bad for women, everyone laughed at it because they thought, well, this is just, of course, this is absurd. It's such a niche complaint. Lo and behold, 10 years later, Anita Sarkeesian has set the agenda in the entire gaming industry. So there's like these big things having very small beginnings, I guess.
Yeah, and then Tumblr and or all these, that's where all the pronouns came from, and 4chan, that whole back and forth. But yeah, I like all you people. Unfortunately have to go. I like this conversation.
No, sorry, we should have got to it earlier. Sorry, no, because I know it would be great to have more time with you on this one. But thank you for taking the time anyway.
Yeah, as long as I could get maybe a little bit of a generalized take out there, and you guys can talk about it more. I understand what you're saying about everything, and I just think, I think it is just Bethesda wanting to appeal to these people that have these pronouns, and it's just like, should they or should they not do that? That's pretty much where I think this whole conversation goes, really. But what was I gonna say? Quickly, Hogwarts Legacy forced everyone to have they them pronouns. I don't know if you even noticed that if you played the game.
Yeah,
that's like another thing I wanted to just throw in, that you guys can talk about it. But there was if you could pick a male or a female, kind of, but everyone called you they them throughout the entire game. I thought that was kind of annoying when I was playing it, but like I didn't.
That was annoying because it was cheap, and they saved so much money on dialogue in that game.
So, but there's other examples. You guys, maybe you have different examples of other games that that did some things. Like you mentioned Elden Ring, but But
I
no,
think again,
I gotta bounce. I'm so sorry.
No worries. No, we
Thank
should
you,
I should have got onto that earlier. But no, thank you for taking the
okay.
time and have fun on your stream, and we'll have
Later,
you back soon.
Lofty.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, we'll have to hang out again. I'll maybe come back on here. This is one of my favorite streams. So thank you for inviting me.
Glad to hear it. See you later.
Bye, bye, guys. See you guys.
Bye.
I think
Cine.
that. Well, I just wanted to like quickly respond that I mean, Lofty's correct that yeah, prior games have done this, and again, it's not the degree of what's going on. It just happened to be the timing, on Az's part that again, irritate, and then eventually you're going to blow a gasket. And this just happened to be this time for this game.
Yeah, and
Also,
Hogwarts
I was,
Legacy. Oh no, sorry. After you.
Also, I was just annoyed because like it was like the launch of the game, and I'm just trying to find like people's opinion on the game itself, and I'm like, I'm doing it while I'm working. I don't want to like go on YouTube and find like a review of it. I just want to see what Twitter thinks. And my timeline is just filled with just overreactions, and it's just like the Az clip and people overreacting to Az's clip, reacting to it poorly, and then people are like, "I'm uninstalling the game." And it's like, can I get a opinion? Is the game good? I think I commented on one of Lofty's posts. I was just like, "Is the space game good?" And he was like, "Yes." And I was like, "Thank you. I will leave Twitter now. Goodbye."
That's why I thought it was probably for the best that, and I know it's not the thing that everyone necessarily wants to be talking about, but I thought it might be better to begin this by talking about what the game actually is, just because, it's a work of art. It is a game. Game criticism shouldn't just be reducible to the latest political slanging match. And it's kind of regrettable that that's what it's come to. But I think to pin the blame for that on Az is probably wrong. A lot of people probably will try and pin the blame on Az for that, but actually Az is just responding in kind to the kind of thing that's been happening throughout gaming for pretty much a decade at this point, without a huge amount of response from the other side. People always talk about the culture war in gaming. It's not been a culture war. It's been a culture rout. It's been one side saying, do this or else, and then the games industry caving. And then people who began by laughing at Anita Sarkeesian and saying, oh shit, we seem to have lost everything we love. And maybe we need to change our tactics a bit here. So I guess the tactical question is also an interesting one.
Yeah, if I could, I'm sorry I left you guys. My children, they have school tomorrow, so I had to make sure everything was kosher before I put them to bed. I don't play games, so I'm not in the gamer world. I do have to say, though, when it comes to the gender ideology thing, for me personally, I believe it should be snuffed out in every single form of entertainment. I've had enough. Like you said, Goodwin, it's just been shoved down my throat, for a very long time. I've had enough of it. I don't want any more of it. And I honestly, if you like it, that's fine, but I don't want to be a part of it. And so if they're just going to put it in anything that I am consuming, I'm not going to put my dollars into it. And I think that those who don't want it, and I don't want an inch of it. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile, and they just have been taken so much that they've got a whole country's worth of how much space that we've given. And I don't think Az was 100% wrong in his take on this.
No, it was just the way he said it. It's like, can we calm down?
Well, I have to be honest with you. That's Az's thing. I don't know if you guys watched his videos.
Yeah,
I like his. I got introduced with his Batwoman videos, and his Batwoman videos were very, again, he went off the rails, which I personally thought was actually kind of funny. So I think that that's not out of character for his YouTube channel. Yeah, those are my thoughts on. Although I just want to say, some of you have been bringing up some very good thoughts while I've been listening. I just didn't hear the whole thing, so I didn't get to hear all of Lofty's thoughts, and I didn't get to hear all of Andrew's thoughts and everything. But you guys have been making very good, solid points. I will give you that.
Well, yours was good. I've never seen the word "based" appear concurrently in chat quite so many times as when you said that it should be wiped out. That's a pretty popular take by the looks of things.
Matt, I do want to make clear my pronoun is emperor. Please try and respect it. Thank you, guys.
I think I'm fine with it if it's done well in media, but it's never done well usually. So that's a big thing. Like I'm interested in seeing like gay characters if they're done well, because it's like, how do these people like work, and what if they're in like Stranger Things? Like Will is pretty interesting as a character.
I agree with you.
Especially season 4. I think it was my favorite character in season 4, just how he
Yeah.
his relationships with all the other characters and how he like how he's like his friends are kind of drifting apart and how he's dealing with that. I think there's a line in season 3. It's like one of the better parts. I don't know if it was season 1 or season 3 or season 2, where they're all yes, it was season 3. They're all together. They're trying. Will is trying to coordinate like a D&D game, and the friends are just like, "No, we don't care." And then he kind of is like, he's like, "Fine, whatever." He goes out in the rain, and then what's the rat kid that I hate? Matt? No.
Will?
Was that a dig?
No. No.
I'm
Who's
joking,
the main
I'm joking.
character? Who's the main kid who's just like this weasel little boy?
What is his
That's
name?
Will Byers, isn't it?
No,
No.
Will Byers the
No.
gay kid. The other
Oh no,
kid,
who am I thinking? What? Well, yeah.
we
the
know.
Wolf,
Oh,
Finn
shit.
Wolfhard's character, right?
Yeah. What
I
the hell
don't-
is his name?
Hold on. I'm looking it up. What
Look
is
it up for me,
Um,
please. Anyway, like that, the rat
Chat-
character.
yes.
The rat character comes
Mike.
out and he's like,
Mike.
Mike,
Mike,
I
there we
hate
go, yeah.
Mike so much. Mike comes
11
out.
shouts the name so much. We really should have remembered it.
Yeah,
Mike goes out in the rain and he's like, "Will, did you really think we were just gonna play D&D for the rest of our lives?" And Will just is like, "Yeah." I really like that moment. I think Will's a really cool character. And it would be nice to see that sort of like quote unquote representation, if you want to call it that.
Mm. Although that moment's
with-
in season 3, right? So season
Mhm.
3 is pretty naff, but that's one of
Yeah.
the stronger moments. But that's before they decided, hey, let's make him gay. But the reason that
Really?
thing works, that's season 3.
They just strongly hint at.
Yeah, they hint it, but
Well,
it's not
I know
sort of
they
confirmed.
referred to him in the first season as like
Oh, his dad calls him a word I can't say on YouTube.
yes, I was.
But that's
it's him and his mother do right. So
no, his
um,
mother doesn't. His dad did. His mom
I
complains.
swear,
that his
remember
dad
her
did.
saying the F slur.
No,
I
she
feel
said
like
his dad calls him a.
Oh,
you know,
okay, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We know it,
but
shut
I
up.
think at the time that was just intended to portray the dad as a dick.
Yeah.
I don't think they had it in mind at that point that they wanted to make him gay. That's a season 4 thing. The reason the moment you talked
Really?
about in season 3 works so strongly is because this is a guy who's basically had his entire childhood denied to him because of his infiltration by the mind flayer. So what they did by doing that was essentially show that this is a kid who's not been able to grow up because he's been under the corruption and the control of some nefarious thing. And they tried to portray that by saying, well, he's not had the usual growing up experience, so he just wants to play D&D, and Mike and the rest have moved on with their lives. Then gayness comes in season 4, and I don't mind the way they did it. I think it's quite sensitively done. I think it probably was a late decision, though. It was a kind of tokenization thing, but at least they are kind of working it into the character in a way that makes some sense, as opposed to just... And I think this is going back to the Starfield thing. One of the reasons, as I said on Twitter, I don't think this is a conscious gender ideology pushing decision by the devs, is that they basically said, well, how can we possibly please as many of the alphabet community as possible in the cheapest way possible? Let's have the pronoun option, that's fine. So there's nothing about it that actually makes the character interesting. Whereas in Stranger Things, they are kind of trying to integrate that with the writing of the character.
Well, and I think that the key to writing a good gay character is to write a good character first. And
Yeah.
Will's in season 4. The interesting thing is that him being gay is I mean it's almost tangential. It's him going through puberty and the trying to figure out how do you approach people and all that. That he's gay is just an added complication, but the fundamental things that he's going through, the things that every person who has passed through puberty and become an adult, can look back and go, yeah, I remember those awkward times, struggling to figure out, oh, I have a crush on someone, it's not working out. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a doubly awkward situation as well, because that person is your best friend, and also you're growing up in a world where this is not kind of expected of young people,
Right.
which I think in a way that kind of narrative arc of season 4 is probably harmed by the current deism of the gay, because now we're sort of in this world where, we're encouraging in effect people to identify in the loosest way possible with any minority position. So it doesn't seem quite as impactful when you see Will struggling with that in season 4. Whereas in the context of the world that they've created and the time period it's set in, and that specific relationship with his best friend who he knows is in love with somebody else. So you have that combination of forbidden love and unrequited love, which is probably quite realistic for a large number of people, and that makes it pretty effective. And that's the kind of thing that you're not really seeing in very much other modern media, which is just like, hey, he's gay, and that's simultaneously the most special thing about him, but also it's no different than anybody else. So there's no character work that's being done to justify it. It's just ticking the box, getting the praise, moving on, which is, I think, the reason that, say, Starfield includes non-binary gender identities and things like that.
I mean, even look at like Arcane. That's a gay couple, and it's really good, I'd say. Like, it's not like, oh, these are two women together. It's like these are two people that pretty much fit in each other's worlds, like pretty much perfectly, even though they don't quite realize it yet. And they are very good for each other, and it really works. And it's like, I would like to see that with other, like, I'm down to see like the like the other stuff, wokeisms done well, but overall it's not, so I don't care. So it's like, just give me good story and I won't complain.
Well, it's why the clone character in Starfield is the one that I've not played it yet, so I don't really mind it as such, because I've not watched the rest of Az's gameplay for that bit yet, so I don't know how that character pans out. It's why I don't mind it, because there are examples of that throughout classic sci-fi where that kind of weirdness is prevalent and you can do really interesting things with it. The question is, are they going to go on to earn the weirdness, or are they just going to say, hey, I'm a clone of a guy, and therefore in some weird way gender non-conforming, and therefore that's all you need to know, in which case that's tokenization and tick boxing as opposed to interesting concept developed through story.
I think Star Wars recently played with the idea in the Bad Batch, but I think
you're one of maybe 6 people in the world who's seen that.
Yeah,
but not a nerd.
Yeah, because
not a nerd. Just want to make sure
terrible.
I think I don't know if Star Wars did it well, because there's the kid character. I think her name is Omega.
It is Omega.
And I didn't watch season 2, so I don't know what her character arc in season 2 is like.
You're better for it.
Okay. But in season 1, like, she doesn't know where she comes from because she's from Kamino, but she's not a clone, or she doesn't look like the other clones. She doesn't look like Boba Fett or Jango Fett. So she, and then like, I think like through just like happenstance, they run into like a data file and they're like, oh, who are you? And they're like, oh, you have the same DNA as us. And that kind of like, I don't even remember if that builds any like relationship between them. Does it? I forget. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger first season. There's no resolve.
I can tell you right now, season 2 is very bad. So if there's any of that, I don't remember.
I know Cad Bane showed up in season 1, and that was cool.
Yeah, it was
Cowboy.
I don't think that they addressed that in season 2. I can't remember.
That kind of sucks.
If they do, it's very short because I don't remember. Season 2 was really, really bad in my opinion. It was way worse than season 1. So
that's a shame.
Yeah.
Also, season 1 retconned Kanan's backstory. Kanan Jarrus from Rebels.
Oh, yeah,
they had a comic. I have the first 2 issues. I thought it was pretty good. And then and then the Bad Batch just like retconned it, because I guess that's just Dave Filoni's thing, is just retconning already established canon by Disney. But he's just like, nah, I make better, and then he doesn't make it better. So
gotcha. Well,
he did that with the Ahsoka novel. That was Disney canon until he made the Siege of Mandalore and made it worse. That was the same for the Kanan thing I just said, and made it worse. What else has he? Oh yeah, he made the Sith planet Korriban and just changed it to Moraban for some reason. He just likes trolling, I guess.
I mean, I guess so. Yeah, it's the fact
I hate
that they
guy.
Yeah, them retconning anything doesn't surprise me.
Even their own canon, like retconning like legend stuff that they've already decanonized, I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. And then like their own canon, they're like, nah, we changed our mind.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. Filoni
retcons his own stuff.
Yeah, he's not a lover of Star Wars in my opinion. So. In fact, I think
he's Lucas's apprentice.
He's a special needs child, is what he is.
Yeah, I don't think he. I honestly don't think he likes Star Wars. Whenever I watch Star Wars with him writing, I'm like, I don't think this asshole likes Star Wars. I mean, maybe, but I mean, then just go make something else.
I don't even know if he likes his characters anymore.
Well, he keeps
Because
changing
all of the
his mind on
characters in
those.
Ahsoka are just all of his
He's
characters.
he's
in
the
Ahsoka are
he's the
completely
tragedy
different
of Darth
from any-
Plagueis sort of brought to life, right? So it's. Did you ever hear of the tragedy of Darth Lucas the Wise? He taught his apprentice everything he knew, and then his apprentice murdered him in his sleep. And
Yeah.
that's basically Filoni's relationship with George Lucas. But also, Filoni, yeah, you're right. That he retcons his own stuff all the time,
Mhm.
which I don't like that they retcon the entirety of the expanded universe. I think that was a disastrous
Yeah.
decision. But even if you do that, at least have the good graces to keep your own expanded universe that you're now creating consistent with itself. Like, retconning one thing is bad enough. Retconning your own replacement is unforgivable.
Yeah, but I mean, Filoni essentially just like learned all of the worst George Lucas.
He learned prequel era George Lucas.
Right, he can't actually direct humans. He can't write dialogue for shit. He is constantly going back and messing with things that is already complete and he built, right, but he lacks the skills of Lucas, like an overall story, the mythos that you're trying to do. So what we have now is Kathleen Kennedy's idea of story and mythos combined with Filoni's inability to actually execute on things well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
could
Dave
go wrong?
Filoni's a weird one, and it's like he doesn't know how to direct actors, and that's very evident from the first episode of Ahsoka.
True.
And also his episodes of Mando. But he is better at directing them in the Clone Wars and in Rebels, because the voice actors are pretty much given free reign on how the character.
Yeah, they're in an entirely different room. He's not there. He just wrote some crap, and they actually
they're given a couple paragraphs on what the character is and who they are, and then he just lets the voice actor cook, and that's most of the carrying. And it also is a thing where all of the actresses who are playing the characters in Ahsoka are not the original voice actors. They didn't do a Bo-Katan. So Rosario Dawson is not Ashley Eckstein. And the rest aren't any of the original ones either. So they don't know what the character really is unless they've watched it. Which, I mean, if Kenobi is a evidence, I assume they didn't. So they're just being told things by Dave, and they're just given his scraps of whatever he tells them. He just tells them stoic, and they're like this, and he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So
But there's also the other aspect of Lucas style storytelling, which I think really is behind the failure of the prequels, which is that George Lucas doesn't really like character at all.
No.
George Lucas, so the reason that the original trilogy works so well, and yeah, it's based on, the work that he did do, the good work he did do with A New Hope, but then its most important character developments are written by other people, directed by other people, in films helmed by other people, in Empire and Return of the Jedi. That trilogy works incredibly well because it is a story about the plucky individual through the individual's lens, taking on this grand galactic empire, which they can't ever understand fully, except insofar as it impacts and affects them. Whereas the prequels is much more George Lucas style storytelling. George Lucas is very interested in the meta narrative of things. The prequels is all about chess pieces on a board being moved around to establish a certain type of conclusion. The prequels are an old style Greek tragedy where you're all meant to know, in a way that the characters don't, where this thing is going. Mm-hmm. And that depersonalized style storytelling allows him to do a lot of world building stuff, but it makes it way less engrossing because you're not inhabiting any particular character, because most of the individual characters are kind of dumb and one-dimensional and bland and flat and stupid in an irritating way. Mm-hmm. So this ideal mix is George Lucas creates the universe and the world, and he tells you where you need to go, and then he gives it to someone else to write characters who get you there with stories individually that other people have written. And that works brilliantly. But
here's the universe, have somebody competent actually populate it.
Yes, yeah. And also tell it from the perspective of somebody in it rather than this grand chess master outside of it looking down.
Right. Well, could you do a depersonalized story and still have it be well executed? Because and have it be sort of like a history piece, but in a fictional world.
You can, I mean, well, to the extent the prequels work at all, it's because the grand meta narrative of the entire arc is very compelling, and the tragedy of it, the fact that we know where everything is going and we see the mistakes they make to get there, is quite engrossing in a different kind of way. But it's not going to be as engrossing as actually living through the characters who are living through that experience. It's always a very academic exercise watching the prequels. I like the prequels as an academic exercise because I understand the politics that he's trying to convey. I think it could have been done better, but I understand what he's going for. I know the basic tragic beats that he's putting forward. And we look at Anakin from the beginning and we know already that you are doomed, and we see your doom play out, and we know that you're trying to avoid it, much like Oedipus in like one of the classic Greek tragedies, who tries to avoid his fate, and by so doing ensures that the fate comes to pass. Like that can be engrossing. The Greeks did it very well, but George Lucas also tried to bring in character work that he's incapable of creating, and it makes it altogether less romantic and less feeling than the original trilogy was.
Yeah, I mean, he has the classic, hubris invites nemesis, outlined for Anakin, but God help you if you actually have to write Anakin and make it, so you have a pathos for what's going on.
I hate sand. Character work. My God.
Woo! Why, real quick, why didn't they just hire the voice actresses to play the characters on Ahsoka? Because they're all pretty young and they're not ugly. They're pretty good looking. I mean, they're not, the woman that voices Hera isn't the hottest chick on the planet, but she's like in good shape, and they're all in pretty decent shape. I don't understand why you wouldn't hire them. I mean, is Rosario Dawson a big name? No. So I'm like, why wouldn't you?
I don't know. I don't know, because they are wasting their talent. Because I think Rosario Dawson is a great actress.
She is, yes.
She's in Daredevil, and she's really good in that show.
I think one of the problems is that so as a voice actor, you very much act like you're on stage, right? Your physicality is much larger because you're trying to convey those emotions, and being a good voice actor does not mean you're going to look good, especially on TV. You can do certain things. On a 30-foot movie screen, you have to be very deliberate and small in your movements because it's so amplified, as Richard Burton discovered in the first couple of movies that he did.
Counterpoint, maybe over, big motions would be a lot better than what we're getting right now, because did you see Ahsoka on that ship? She was just like, and I'm all what's going on here? What's going on here?
And again, I think Filoni mistakenly thinks that stoic is sedated. That's not what's going on.
And hollow, where it's like, I think Ahsoka was a pretty stoic character in Rebels. But she did show like compassion, and she cared for people. She understood what the rebellion meant to people. She was like a symbol of hope. It's like, so she was able to still be charismatic, or charismatic, but in this,
Well, stoicism isn't the absence of emotion. It is the rational control of your emotion, and
which means you have to understand what's being suppressed in order for stoicism to be interesting.
Right, and when to use it, to further your goals, your rational and reasoned goals.
Yeah. So we agree it sucks. Great.
Good shit.
Okay.
Yeah. Season episode 4 even on Wednesday. Do we want to do predictions for where we're going with the whales and the ring?
I think this is going to be the end. Crazy theory. I think this is going to be the end of this arc, and then there's going to be a time skip. Because I don't think there's not a lot of material. Although I can see Dave stretching it out. I think that there might be a time skip. I'm sensing it. They're going to reveal Marok's, whatever Dark Souls man's identity. It's going to be shock, and then it's going to be like, there's going to be a time skip. The hyperspace whales will probably go somewhere, and then it will go way more into the trippy Force mythos that Dave is so addicted to. Because I think, didn't he say that Ahsoka is a religious experience? I think he said that.
Didn't he say that watching his own work was a religious experience? Yes. I think.
The ego on my man.
Yeah, that's what we all want when we watch Star Wars.
Just this is how Mormonism got started. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, I don't know about the time jump. I'm sorry. That's a good theory. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think this is going to be another short, boring episode where it's a lot of weird, clunky lightsaber moves. On
I
that
think there's going to
red
be 2
tree
lightsaber
planet.
fights.
Yeah, but I mean, if any, I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling that Ray Stevenson is going to die from that
Yep.
crazy blonde chick. She's going to be like, I am the captain now, and everything. You're
maybe.
like, okay.
I don't know. Shin Hottie is kind of a hottie.
She is a hottie, yeah.
Bro.
I like her crazy eyes, but I bet she's a panther in the sack. And as far as the mask, dude, I mean, I don't know. I don't even think anybody cares if Mardoc or whatever the hell his name is, if he's
MODOK.
MODOK, if he's anything special, because he's just very. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. I think he's stupid. So
There's some crazy theories with him. My favorite is one where it said that he is from the world between worlds, the time travel place.
Mm-hmm.
He got thrown into it and he's lost and he's only helping to get back.
Yeah.
So he could be just like a cameo of some like some character in extended universe lore. That Dave, I 100% think it's going to be a new character. I know a lot of people think it's going to be Ezra. I don't think Dave is going to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like he's just going to throw in some cheap trick. Like he could throw in Starkiller. I honestly think Starkiller is more likely than Ezra because of the lightsaber.
Yeah, and isn't I saw somebody say something on Twitter about the character's last name is Morok. Is that true? I don't know. I didn't play that game, so I don't know anything about that game.
Something about it, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. He's giving out free mustache rides, guys.
Oh, and spoilers: Ray Stevenson does in fact die.
Does? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Spoilers,
no.
bro.
I also don't think it's Ezra either. I don't think it's going to be Ezra.
It wouldn't make sense because he got stolen with
Thrawn. Yeah,
and
it
yet
would
the
be,
whales
it would
are
be weird.
back, right? So the
They
whales have come
are
back,
yeah.
and when we first see them, there are a suspicious number of cutaways to that guy in the cockpit looking around at the whales, which is the only 2 pieces of evidence I can really muster. I'm not convinced it will be Ezra, but I can see.
Yeah. I feel like
that
his lightsaber would be different because his lightsaber is a Inquisitor era
But
lightsaber.
doesn't Sabine have his old lightsaber?
Yes,
Yeah,
but why would there be I guess my question is why would there be Inquisitor era lightsabers in this era? Because at this point, all of the Inquisitors should be dead. I think all of the Inquisitors are supposed to be dead by not A New Hope. By Return, I think all of them are supposed to be dead.
Isn't that arguably
but-
like evidence in his favor though? Because he comes from a period where Inquisitor lightsabers were a thing, and he's still using one of those. And
Ezra
so,
or
yeah, doesn't Ezra fight Inquisitors
Ezra-
at some point?
He
does, but he never uses it. He never has one.
Oh.
He only has his, and he gives that to Sabine. I don't. It's been a while since I've seen.
I have just realized that we are currently asking why would this thing that doesn't make sense be in a Disney Star Wars?
Yeah, that's
show?
true. It is. It is crazy because like, logically it cannot be Ezra, but absolutely it could be Ezra because it is Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of limbo we're in.
Your reason and logic will not save you.
Yeah, legit. Yeah.
Well, I guess the ideal point from my video perspective is that it is the Grand Inquisitor. Like he somehow survived and has come back. That would be fun.
Explode. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's Disney Star Wars. No one's ever truly gone.
Someone said it was Jar Jar. I think that's crazy.
Jar
Honestly,
Jar.
someone said it was the Frogman from Jedi Survivor.
That's the one thing about that game that I didn't mind the game as a whole, but the fact that there is just a frog is
Screw
character
you! The
design,
frog
my
is the
God.
best.
Not sure about that one.
What? You don't think you are frog phobic?
I think
Jack
I might be
Hansen.
frog phobic, but
Why can't the frog exist?
I mean, Platoon does not like the French, so I think.
no,
he is
well, that's a
correct,
good
yeah.
point. Yeah, very good point.
Wait, so why can't the frog exist?
Because it's a frog.
But it's not. It's alien, and it
No,
stands. and it
It's
says
just
hello.
it's just a frog. It's a frog that someone stuck in Microsoft Paint and elongated the legs of, and that's it.
Okay,
That's
the-
not character design.
The Geonosians are just bugs with hands.
But they're not actual bugs. They look bug-ish, whereas that is just a frog.
But it's cool. It's a
Is
homie.
it though?
I
Is
don't-
it
I
though?
dress-
It's
I'm-
it's a talking
listen,
frog.
I'm looking at
I'm
him. He
dressed-
doesn't look that great.
Bro, he is chill. Listen, dream blunt rotation, he's involved. All right, that's all I'm saying.
I'm just looking at photos of him right now, and he looks weird.
Bro, he's cool.
Is he though? I'll have to watch some
Would,
movies.
would it be a BSUP if Andrew did not have a total shit take at
This
some
is
point?
true.
Frogman
This
is
is-
cool.
he's staying on brand. He's going heel now.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
now
watch
it's just
some.
giving me the Frogman from Mando season 2. Oh, here he
Oh,
is.
right
He's
on.
cool. He has a little belt.
But it's still a frog.
What do you mean that's just a frog?
It is just. It's. Have
His
you seen the
eyes
guy?
are weird. I'm
Yeah, so
looking
what-
at him right
A
now.
frog's eyes are weird. That's the
What are you
point.
talking? They don't go like this.
Yes,
His
they
eyes
do.
are wonky. He's more of a gecko.
He's a frog.
He's cool. Does he speak English?
All
No, he
right.
speaks French. He's a frog, for God's sakes. Aren't you paying
Or what,
attention?
wait, does he speak in game?
Yes.
Does he speak English?
Yes.
Oh my god.
It's a weird like. I'm a high pitched, kind of really nervous kind of voice kind of thing.
Oh, his name is Turgle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this guy.
Wait, what are the hyperspace whales called?
Purgle.
Purgles.
Oh my
So there's
god.
Turgle
He's
and
related.
Turgle.
He's the
Turgles
master.
and Purgles.
There's a buddy cop movie waiting to happen. Turgle and Turgle.
This is the best creation I think. in
Star Wars sequel to Tango and Cash. Yeah.
This is the
Turgle
sequel.
and Purgle, a Star Wars story. coming
Oh
to
gosh,
cinemas in
I'd watch it.
2027.
I'd watch it.
It's just Finding Nemo, but in space.
I blessedly watched none of this shit, but I have watched Brownie's coverage of it. And the last episode, I think, actually broke my brain. There was a point where I was like, listen to the words we're saying, and none of this makes sense. I have hyperspace whales. What? And then, 8 other things that happen. You're just like, this is just like the ravings of a lunatic at this point.
Hyperspace whales are weird, and I think they could work, but they are just like they can travel intergalactically.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is a very. It does feel like a Star Wars thing that would just be so weird. It's like the spider monks at Jabba's palace. That's just such a weird idea. I feel like the whales could fit, but they're just like, look, the whales. I feel like they should only exist in space. Because
Yeah, and-
once they go into atmosphere,
I mean,
just
I
flop.
already had to look at 1984's Dune Navigators. That's as close to hyperspace whales as I want to deal with. And if these have vagina mouths, I'm out.
It's funny.
I'm still staring at Turgle. I think I'm gonna set him as my wallpaper
Oh God, of course you will.
of my
Well-
phone, not my PC.
Since we've broached the subject of hyperspace whales and frogs, and we are over the 3-hour mark, I reckon we can move on to the super chats, and we will wrap up in due course, unless anyone
Oh
has
my
any
God.
other stories they've spotted that they want to ventilate.
I found a picture of Turgle praying.
Can you
Is this
share
in the
it?
game? Maybe he
don't
might be
remember him
begging for
praying.
his life. Actually, no, he's begging for his life.
Okay, that's definitely in the game.
Okay. Oh, he has a gun.
He does, but he never uses it. He's
No.
a shit character. He's a coward. He's a cowardly frog.
No.
I'm actually with Kyle Haidt in the chat. They want the space whales to lead to a Star Wars Aquaman crossover.
Actually, genius. I
I
want
would watch it.
a movie about this guy.
No, God, no.
You travel in a large group of one.
Do they have a Lego figure of this guy?
They do.
Oh,
Yes.
inevitably, yes.
Yes. Yep.
Of Turgle?
Yep.
No.
Yes. I don't, I'm making this up. I don't know.
Will this be another figure that mysteriously appears on Andrew's shelves because people just kept buying me them? Like your
They
fucking
did,
BB-8
okay?
collection.
Listen, this BB-8 3D printed one is kind of cool though, because it has some heft to it, and I feel like if I threw it at someone, they could possibly die.
Well, that's a good use for a sequel trilogy prop. I agree.
Kill.
V Marie for $20. Thank you very much. I'm guessing madam. Now is a good time to get into the Jujutsu Kaisen for anyone that likes anime. They are adapting some great source material, and you can tell studio knows they have something special with how much love and care was put into it. Has anyone seen Jujutsu Kaisen?
No.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I actually watched the One Piece adaptation, the first episode.
Oh, yeah, that's out. How's that going?
I thought One Piece was surprisingly cool. It is very anime in terms of its set design. Like the first ship that we see is like a heart-shaped or a heart-themed pirate ship with like heart-themed hooligans on it. And like the way it's shot is just so like it's shot with like 16mm lenses going up into the face, so the face is like kind of like warped a bit, and it's like, how is like I talked to Bagface yesterday on Slight Tomfoolery. Like none of this should work, but it is. And I still don't know why. Also the action is the action's really good. Especially with I don't know, the guy with the swords. I haven't gotten all the names down, but the guy with the swords, he's cool. Also Luffy as a character, he feels like a character I should absolutely hate, but the actor has so much charisma that I'm just like, yeah, you're fine. Zoro, yeah, cool guy. The guy with the swords. Good dialogue? Yeah, I think so. The dialogue is absurd just because it's being adapted from the anime, but it feels consistent with the world.
Did you watch the anime?
No, I did not watch the anime. I have no idea what the source material is like.
Me neither. I won't
at all.
watch it though. So.
The only thing I know is like the One Piece is real meme from like a couple years ago, but that's all I know. So yeah, I think you could probably get into it. There's like a little like expository scene at the beginning explaining like the origin of everything, in terms of what you need to know, and it's like it's a pirate land. That's it, with big water. It's like Sea of Thieves, but anime.
Right on.
Except the anime came first, so yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I may give that a look. Madcat, this one is for you.
Yay, I'm excited. Okay, Alexander Dukas for $5. MattKid83, YouTube Geek What? Thank you for the shout out. You're such a laugh out loud. Great addition to Potty Mouth Crossfire Putri. Punditry. Sorry. Especially Rachel Zegler career advice.
Doesn't she have a movie coming out?
Wait, what was that?
Doesn't she have a movie coming out?
Yeah, the Hunger Games movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was your career advice for her, by the way?
I don't remember.
Stop talking.
Probably. Yeah, probably stop.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably OnlyFans or stop talking. You know, just like that. I always say, sometimes bitches just don't know when to shut the fuck up, and she needs to shut the fuck up.
Amen, brother. Amen.
So Amen. I would say that's probably what I told. That was probably the advice. Shut the fuck up. You're burying yourself more and more. But I don't remember exactly what it was.
I don't see any hype for that Hunger Games movie coming out.
No.
Even my friend, my cousin, who she was a big Hunger Games fan when they came out. She hasn't talked to me at all about this new movie coming out.
Yeah,
so.
we talked about it earlier, but the book is not good. Yeah, it's not very good, and
also the name is so stupid and long.
Yeah.
The songbird of what? Snakes and songbirds.
Peter Dinklage is in it, and it's got a Game of Thronesy title, so I guess that's fitting.
Like, what does that mean?
I don't know. It's a musical.
It's like the Song of Ice and Fire. Okay, I get it. Songbirds and snakes.
The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
It's a musical, no joke. I'm not even joking. You think I'm joking with how many songs they're in it, but there are so many songs. Like this, the Rachel Zegler character sings so much in this book.
Wait, in the book? How do you do songs in a book?
Well, yeah,
is just reading poems.
Andrew's never actually encountered a songbook before. He's unsure how this works.
I don't read.
I just read it, but I sing it. I had my own little tune on there and everything, but I don't know how they'll do it. Then you're gonna hate this movie / book.
I can't wait.
It's just like the books you usually read, Andrew, except instead of just pictures, it has musical notes around the pictures.
Whoa, that's crazy.
I wonder if Rachel Ziegler can sing. That's
She
something we might
can,
have to
yeah.
find out. She
That's
can.
the thing. Before this,
Oh, she was
whole-
in West Side Story, wasn't she?
She was, yes.
Yeah.
And
I
used to-
read. Okay, guys, I read Tolkien. All right? I have Fellowship on my bed. I still need to. I need to get through it. I just
Still
haven't
need
had time.
to start the book, but
Yeah.
I've got the
I
book on
am
my
through
shelf.
it. I am.
But I've
at-
looked at the pictures on the cover, and it's
I
damn
am
compelling.
at. I am at. Who's the annoying hobbit that just shows up for no reason?
Well, it's not an annoying hobbit
Tom
who shows
Bom-
up for.
Tom
That, he's
Bombadil.
not
Tom
a
Bombadil.
hobbit. Not a
Oh,
hobbit
yeah.
at
He's
all.
not a
but
hobbit.
that's the
Oh,
one
yeah.
you're talking about. Yes,
Tom
Tom Bombadil.
Bombadil.
Yeah.
not a
He's a
hobbit.
mysterious
I hate that
creature
character
who
so
doesn't
much.
really have a place. I'm not a fan of Tom Bombadil either.
I'm
it must
not
be
a
said.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like Tom Bombadil either. I'm glad he was not in the
I'm
movie.
so glad they got rid of him. From
Yeah,
the
I
movie.
He's
was-
kind of a
Yeah.
relic
Shows
from.
up, "Hey!"
He's a relic from Tolkien's sort of writing for younger audiences period, I think, which is weird because it comes during one of the darkest periods of the Fellowship of the Ring, you know, when they all effectively die on the Barrow Downs and they have to be revived by Tom Bombadil. But he's a character much more of the old style fairy tales that Tolkien used to write little bits of. And if you go back to the early parts of not the Silmarillion, which is it the Book of Lost Tales? I think it is. Like the Mariner of something or other. Anyway, he used to do much more sort of Brothers Grimm style fairy tale stuff, and Tom Bombadil is one of those style characters. But he doesn't really fit in with the Fellowship of the Ring too much, except insofar as he creates the impression of a magic that no one really understands, which is a serviceable idea, but it's just not really well delivered, I don't think.
Yeah.
There is a postscript from the previous one from Alexander Dukas, which I will take for $2. Yes, Little Platoon's voice, he sounds like butter. If butter has a sound, I will assume that that is what I sound like.
It is very beautiful.
I mean, I couldn't believe it wasn't butter.
I understood that.
It's
reference.
as good as British people can sound.
Emperor Goodwin, would you like to take this one for us?
Campbell Patterson for Australian $5, or as $5, depending on which stream you're on. Would you rather headbutt a cactus or go on a date with Sam Smith?
Is he paying?
Well, Campbell Patterson paid $5 Australian, so somebody's paying.
Listen, if Sam Smith pays for the date, I'm going on a date. I'll get a free meal out of it. I'm not putting out, but
I
although
mean, it depends on the meal. You know, come on.
well, I have fucked a couple fatties in my time, so it wouldn't be the first one. So,
Well, Sam Smith looks like the kind of guy who has a feeder rather than is a feeder. So you might not have much food to go for. I would personally headbutt the cactus.
Same.
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt, like go through your brain, but it'd be fine.
Yeah. Anachron Texas or Anachron TX for $25. Or that, yep. Platoon, speaking of things you like, what about a masterclass series on films that do plot, character, dialogue, etc. especially well? Focus on an aspect and showcase the best of the best and why they are superior. Cheers. I try and do that within the context of the videos that I already make. So I don't go out of my way looking for content. I make content based on what is currently being released that I'm in any way interested in. And so if it's Rings of Power, I will recite liberally from the lore. And if it's Star Wars, I will explain in terms of what the original series does better, original trilogy does better, as opposed to what the current ones do terribly. So I won't probably ever go out of my way to do a thing saying, hey, this is something from 50 years ago that's great, and here's why. It will more be the case like Indiana Jones. This is why the Scarlet Pimpernel is really good, and this is why Indiana Jones 5 is shit. So try to encompass that, but in the context of stuff which is relevant to the current day. James Busher for £2, real money. Is Platoon actually Douglas Murray in disguise? Well, we've never been seen in the same room. So
if you were, I'd fall in love with you even more.
Can neither confirm nor deny. Princess Fiona for $2, semi-real money. King Charles wishes he had Platoon's accent. I don't ever listen to King Charles because he talks to vegetables and I'm not a vegetable. But maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Who knows? He has bad taste though. So, except in architecture, he's good on architecture. Who knows? Todd Stone for $5. When are we getting a little Platoon plushie even? I don't know. Maybe one day in the future. It would be really nice if it came with a real miniaturized bottle of wine. But I think
And a real cigarette.
And a real cigarette. And then Customs and Excise basically say, no, you can't do any of that. So who knows? Maybe one day, maybe like closer to 500,000 subscribers, maybe I'll look into that.
You do. I'm buying one.
You make them, don't you?
And someone will buy
two.
one for Andrew, and it'll just magically appear in his background somehow.
Someone bought me 5 of these.
I don't know how I got these.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Speaking of, actually, Andrew, would you like to take this one?
Sure. Jose Gonzalez for a 5. Could you imagine a nuanced Captain Planet movie where the conflict stems from environmental policies versus what is affordable to poorer countries?
I am not familiar with Captain Planet, so someone else will have to inform me.
I mean,
I'm a surgeon.
Well,
I cannot imagine it because Captain Planet was a ham-fisted, ideological TV series cartoon.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want it to be like serious, but I would want it to be fun like that cartoon was. It's like you said, it's ham-fisted, it's very fun and like very like kiddish, but in like, hey, save the planet and everything. But at the same time, I don't know, man, maybe, but I don't. If it turns out like Barbie, I don't want it. I don't want it at all.
Well, it might give me a Ken character, and I will be fine with that.
Captain Planet, he's like a blue.
Please cast Ryan Gosling.
But if they did, I would watch it in a heartbeat.
Ugh.
Larry, for $20 made you look. Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
Sadly.
Ran out of channel names for $5. Shocking absolutely no one. Lofty is fucking wrong. Dialogue and voice acting are atrocious. He's not even here to defend himself. Listen. Oh no, Matt, you should have to.
Listen.
Thank you. Look, Lofty has his takes, and I like having people with varying different takes on. Many people will disagree with what anyone says. If people disagree with Lofty, that's fine. If people disagree with me, it's interesting. And I appreciate Lofty for his different opinions. Otherwise, it would just be an echo chamber, and I think people would get bored. So, like, agree with him or not, but, you know, he has opinions he has, and he reasons for them, and he's willing to come on and defend them, which is more than can be said for some other people. Hassan Piker retweeted Az's clip saying, "This is why we need to bring back lobotomies," as though Hassan Piker isn't evidence that lobotomies never went away. So, like, I would much rather have people on to talk about their takes than have them just shitting on each other on Twitter. So,
I agree.
All for that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you had Lofty here.
Yeah, Lofty's great. I like Lofty. I don't know if Cynic's around. I'm going to assume he is not, unless he speaks up now, in which case...
Is he high again?
I think he's got some stuff happening, which may or may not mean he's high. Who knows? Macat, would you like to take this one?
Yes,
He's
yeah,
in
for
space.
sure. Luke W. for $5. Nobody buy Starfield. Just pay for a month of Game Pass instead. I don't know what Game Pass is. I am not a gamer, so all of this.
It's just Xbox subscription. It's like
okay.
Netflix, but games.
Oh, okay. Yeah, buy this Game Pass. That sounds like a good deal.
That's an informed take from the person who's not a gamer.
Someone said in chat, Cynic is banging Bagface again.
Well, if they have a bunch of games on there that you can just go play whatever you want, why wouldn't you want that? It's like a bunch of games in one spot. Like Sega Channel. Remember that? No, you don't?
No, I have no idea what that is. What is that?
I do.
Sega Channel?
Yeah, it was awesome. Oh my god, I love Sega Channel so much.
Sega had TV.
Cops are raiding Cynic's house.
It was like it was like the system, but you put in, I think it was you put in something and it had like a buttload of games. And they were like, I just loved Sega Channel so much. I just remember playing so much when I was younger of Sega Channel. It was pretty awesome.
Ben, I'm going to get this wrong. Mangareri, we'll go with that for $10. Manga.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all that, we can go with that as well.
2 times.
There's at least 2 E's and R's that are not included, but fine. On the topic of Az's rant in Starfield, I think the pronoun thing is crazy. They're trying to normalize what is objectively abnormal. If Mike Tyson said he was she, can he fight women? It starts with a prawn.
A pronoun, yeah.
Well, who's the who's
well,
the
we already have male athletes competing against women, you know, in swimming and other endeavors.
Yeah, so the answer probably is yes. If Mike Tyson said he was a she, he could fight women. That's a bad thing, but nevertheless, that's where we are. So some pushback against that I think is warranted.
Mhm.
And the question is whether or not this pushback was the right pushback against the right target. And which I go back and forward on that one. But yeah, Alexander Dukas again for $2. Thank you, sir. Az is upset over cloned male to female plot. Pronouns are a second issue. No, I know he was, but I don't think that. Well, it isn't the clip that's doing the round, so I think that's a related but distinct issue, maybe. But yeah, as mentioned earlier, I don't necessarily mind the clone thing as long as something interesting is done with it, as opposed to just, hey, look how progressive we are. What is next? Andrew, would you like to take this one?
Sure. Steel Manning for a $4.99. If there is a major problem in your life that your pronouns don't match your body, why would you choose that mismatch in game?
Yeah.
I mean, just because. Why not?
Yeah. Well, there's no reason besides narcissism for that kind of thing, right? So it's like when Dungeons and Dragons introduced wheelchair versions of certain heroes.
Yeah.
Some game introduced wheelchair, and you're like, okay, why would you you're creating this idealized version of yourself? If you know you are disabled and you don't like being in a wheelchair, why would you want to play a character who is in a wheelchair? Why wouldn't you make this version of yourself that isn't?
Yeah, I think the difference that we have now in a lot of media and is that we strive for affirmation, not aspiration. The best media are the things that you watch and it makes you want to be more than what you are. The most basic and lazy is look, you're just fine the way you are. That's not especially inspiring or worthwhile. It's not going to have much of a lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's also why the pronouns and gender thing is probably a bit different than the wheelchair example, which is that which video was it? It was the Flash video, I think, when I said that I think we should have if the LGBT thingy has to have an acronym, then if it has to have LGBT in it, then the next letter should just all be condensed into N for narcissistic.
Yeah.
Because anything except for a definitive rights claim based on objective characteristics is just you basically saying, hey, look at me, I am special. And they them pronouns, in my opinion, look, maybe I need to be educated on this point, but in my experience and opinion, they them pronouns are people who want to say, look, I am just a special person who is different than everybody else. Please affirm my abnormal not abnormal, but amorphous definition of what specialness is.
Well,
so they them pronouns is a weird one.
Yeah, I think the obsession with pronouns is very much less the T and much more the Q.
Yeah, which is a whole. Yeah. Yeah, the Q is probably the most cancerous of all the letters. Mm-hmm. It's just basically saying that 3 of the letters are objectively rights claims. 1 of them is debatably a rights claim. That's the T one. And everything after that, which is all usually condensed into Q, is basically saying, I have X fetish, I have X belief about myself, I have X completely random arbitrary thing, which nobody gives a shit about. Asexuality, for example, no one oppresses asexuals. You don't have a rights claim. You don't need to be in the community. There's no point. No one's telling you you can't be asexual.
We encourage that. It's less competition for the rest of us.
Yes, exactly. I have no problem with asexual people. I don't deny asexuality exists, but if you're comparing it to a rights claim based upon a marginalized community, it just seems to me that it doesn't match up. No one's really ever complained about asexuals, that you weren't put in prison for being asexual at any point that I'm aware of. So
you are not having sex. Die.
Which is fine. Be asexual if that's what you feel, if that's what you want to do. I don't have a problem with that. But there's a question of categories that comes into play. Moving on, because we're probably verging on the territory of demonetization. Peter Pidrak for $4.99. How many happy birthdays from around the world can we get for Little Platoon's mum? Yeah, she was 50 last weekend.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you, vicariously. For her. She's now decided that because she's 50, she's basically the queen, so her birthday lasts for about 7 days.
Yeah, what's up with that? I do not understand that. It's only women that do that. They're all, what are you going to do for my birthday?
Women, am I right?
Yeah, right. Can't live with them, can't punch them in the throat. You know, women with their ideas and their feelings and stuff. Anyways.
Go back to the kitchen.
I just want to point out that no matter what Platoon's mom said, I was not in England in the 90s, so I'm not responsible.
What did you get your mom for her birthday?
My sister and I went halves on. What did we get her? flowers and some sort of jewelry and a card, I think.
Oh, that's nice.
I did buy her a flying lesson for her 45th birthday, so like
nice.
that was my big birthday present for her.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then I realized that maybe there are less complicated ways to try and get your mum killed than buying her flying lessons. So. And I believe, rounding off the super chats, from Genmai Cha for $5 Canadian. Who would you rather, Henry Cavill or Chris Hemsworth? I would go with Cavill due to his thick mat of chest hair. If Vex was here, we already know what her answer is.
Yes,
But we'll go in clockwise. Macab, between Henry Cavill and Chris Hemsworth. Which
Henry
would you
Cavill.
choose?
Henry Cavill.
Okay.
Do you see him build that computer? That was hot.
Real, we can play WoW together.
If you're asexual, you can just play Warhammer together. So.
Exactly. Yeah. You just can't be in the universe because reproduction is very important for the human race.
Prickup, and which one would you choose of the two?
Well, I already have thick mat of chest hair, so I don't need extra. But I think I'd go with Cavill just because he looks like he'd be an interesting guy to talk with. We could do some pillow talk; it'd be all right.
Andrew, you're cool.
Cavill, I guess.
Oh,
He's a better.
everyone's gone with Cavill.
Yeah. He just seems more interesting. Chris Hemsworth.
Well, you were going to say
just
he's a better what? He's a better
Lay.
fuck?
I don't remember what I was.
Yeah, he's a better
say.
lay.
Yeah. I don't know. I've barely seen any Chris Hemsworth interviews. Like, he's just like, I'm Thor.
Can I cheat and say neither? Because I don't like. Yeah, they're both just massive.
Timothy
Not a huge
Chalamet's on the
fan.
list. Don't worry.
Yeah, my answer is Timothy Chalamet. So that's my that completely meets the bounds of the question. That I think does bring us to the close of the super chats and so the penultimate section of the show, which is plugs and what's going on with all of our lovely people on the panel. We'll go in reverse order. So Andrew, what have you got coming up?
Ahsoka episode 3 review. I have the audio edited. I just have to go through and do visuals, which I'll probably just be doing all night. And probably not sleep. So that'll probably be up tomorrow. And then I'll just be doing Ahsoka videos as those go out. I think I'm on Nerdy Film Girls channel tomorrow. I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but I'll be there for happy hour. And then fire last time. And then I'm working on an Andor video because the 1 year anniversary of it coming out is coming up, and I really want to talk about it. So that's my excuse. Because I think it's really good, and I also think it's better than Empire, which not a lot of people think. But I'm in.
Okay, see, I was
I'm in that
completely
car.
with you. Right,
I'm in the car,
Oh,
baby.
why is
Platoon.
it that you have a really
Platoon,
good
get in
take,
the
and
car,
then you end
baby.
the really good take with the worst take in the world. What's
I
going
thought
on?
I thought
Get
he
in the
was
car.
done with his shit take. I thought he had already got it out of his system, and
He
nah.
was so close, and then
Come
you
on.
carried on talking.
Get in the car, Platoon.
Why?
We're
Why
going
is
on a
it better?
ride.
How is it better than Empire?
I'll explain in the video.
Okay, we will wait with bated breath for you to be wrong. Oh dear.
I'm dubious that it will actually be explained.
I will explain it.
I am with you insofar as Andor was really good though, and so people should definitely go and watch that. Oh no, there is another super chat which has just come in. Thank you from. Oh no, because I misraced you before, didn't I? Think you were. No, is it Julio or Julio? No, you're not Brazilian. You're Mexican. It's Julio.
You know what?
I think.
Yeah, it's
Maybe I got
Julio.
that wrong again. It's Julio
I keep
Rangel.
forgetting.
Either way, for $5, Platoon. Do you think that this pronoun issue will be solved through compromise by all sides, or does it need to be internally within that community? Oh God. Well, that's potentially a long answer. No, I don't think it can be solved internally within that community because I don't think most of. Well, it depends what you mean by the community. I don't think most of the quote unquote LGBT community actually goes in for it. I think it's a very small minority sect that really obsesses about it. If you get rid of it, then you cut virtually the entire Q part of the acronym out. And so really it's a case of definitions, and it's about basically finding out what works and what doesn't. Historically, people on the left in particular, but also it does apply to people on the right, won't ever be convinced that they are wrong unless they are demonstrably and incontrovertibly showed that they are wrong. So communism never really recovered from the death of Stalin, for example. And I don't think that the Q community will ever really recover once it's proven that this is such a massive turnoff to a huge part of the audience, and everyone hates you if you try and masquerade your virtue in this way. So it probably requires a reactionary movement of some kind. My only concern is that the reactionary movement probably won't be very specific about who it's targeting, and another and broader campaign against legitimate rights claims and groups will be an unfortunate side effect of that.
Yeah, I think the community itself had an opportunity to police itself, and either because of the nominal heads of activist groups that claim to represent the group and the positions they took, that self-policing didn't happen. There will inevitably be a backlash. The problem is you're going to end up having a lot of people that were not involved in the stupidity having to eat that backlash along with those who do deserve it.
Mm.
Chat, no, I don't think Solo is better than Empire. Calm down. I'm not insane. God.
No, just infirm.
I liked Solo, but it's not good.
Solo wasn't as bad as it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not.
It looks
great.
so expensive. Well, it is the most expensive, and it looks expensive, which is so overwhelming, I guess. It's like, man, that thing cost so much money, and that was mid. Which is I like the alien designs in it, and I wish there were more aliens in the Star Wars. It was just weird to say, but it's like Disney took over. Ever since Solo, there's been a mass genocide of aliens.
Right.
It's just throw in a little goblin man.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Or a frog guy.
Oh my God!
Let's not get on that again.
Live action frog man.
Unless you mean Fringy. Fringy is fine, but everything after that, no, I'm out.
I saw a picture. They said the frog man was Marok. It's a really funny picture.
I'm looking it up now.
Platoon, I'm going to send it to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I need more Frogman in my life. While you're sending it, Emperor Goodwin, what is coming up for you?
In 3 minutes, I'm actually heading over to Adam Gray's channel, and we're doing the B-side stream where we cover classic, somewhat shite movies and TV and comment on them. I think Uninspired is going to be on there as well.
Yes, I think you said you would be.
Oh, good stuff. I don't know if there is any mod in the channel. If any mods are in the channel, if you can find the link, please post it. My problem is that if I press buttons on my keyboard, I end up wearing Christmas hats, so I can't. Which is a problem I'm gonna have to fix at some point. But I will try and follow you over there. I hope at least a lot of people in chat would as well. But in the interim, Matt, what's coming up with you?
I'm just my channel's Geek What. I just do a bunch of geeky stuff. I don't know. I think Ahsoka episode 4 is the next video I have planned, which I'm looking forward to. Yay, super fun. I also do a podcast with my sister. We just put an episode out today. We get drunk and review movies. That's our whole thing. So it's pretty fun. We share stories and all that stuff. But yeah, that's all I got. Oh, and that one's called BS Drunk Movie Reviews, just so you guys know, if you're interested.
Good stuff. Yeah, Cynic, I think, is away because he's dealing with some stuff at the moment. I don't know if he's back. I'm assuming he isn't, but I'm sure he has videos coming out in the near future, which will be well worth the watch. And on my channel, The Mandalorian Part 2, which, it's going to be, it's long. It's the longest I've done ever, I think. I think it is going to be around 4.5 hours. That will be this coming Sunday for sure. And after that, I will be moving on to Ahsoka, which will also probably be a 2-part sort of first 4 episodes, last 4 episodes thing, which will come out the first part before the end of September. So that's the stuff that's coming up on my channel. And I believe that brings us pretty much to the close of the show. So thank you all very much to our guests for joining. Thank you to the chat for being your usual lovely selves. And we will see you, I think, on Cynic's channel next week. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Super chats tonight will be used for Cynic's bail.
I do wonder if he's been swatted. He just told me stuff's going on, but we'll find out one day. But yes, see you later, everyone.
Bye.